Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a special Thursday midday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course. You got to unmute your microphone. No, you're not coming through. You must have touched
What
something.
about now?
Yeah, there you go. Now.
There we
you
go.
There
Hate
you
when that
go.
happens.
Beautiful. You hit the wrong button there. All right. Yeah, made
Yep.
me a little nervous because I had to reset my microphone settings at the last minute, too. But hey, thanks everybody for being here today. Appreciate you all showing up early for us. Good evening to those out east, be it in Europe or further east than that. Appreciate everybody very much for being here today. Thanks everybody for hanging out at the Jimmy Dore show last night, both online and in person. We were present at both Jimmy Dore shows yesterday,
Yes.
both the podcast and the comedy show. Yes.
That's what we call total coverage around here.
Yes, that's total coverage. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
This was, I got a couple of picks. This is Mike, the most awesome, nice road manager you're ever going to meet. I haven't seen him do lines in the bathroom once. That's very, very rare quality in a road manager.
Pro.
And then, so it was at Helium Comedy Club there.
Nice.
I'm representing my Buffalo peeps there with a T-shirt from the North Park Theater. So yeah, that was great, man. You know, it was interesting because Jimmy was doing some crowd work, and everyone he went to is like, "So what do you do?" "I'm a welder." "What do you do?" "I'm a plumber." Jimmy's
Right.
like, Buffalo, blue collar."
Yeah,
Like,
it's a blue collar town.
it's very cool, man. I said when I've gone to see shows here, it's very nice because they're actual people.
Right.
You go to a show in New York, and you could pay a New York family's rent for a year if you sold everyone's designer eyeglass frames.
Right. Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
everyone's got these, $1,200 frames. None of that shit here, man.
Well, that is good. Yeah, it's a similar vibe in upstate New York here. I sense that at the co-host show as well. But yeah, so that was great. Jimmy, what is in Toledo tonight? Toledo,
Yes.
Ohio.
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah, it was a great time. I'll read Michael Castillo's super chat since it's for $50. So let's have a cowbell start the
snap.
show off for Michael, and of course his sound drop there. Got to hit that as well. Good day, gentlemen. Keaton, I thought you killed it yesterday on Jimmy's show. Do Dissidents and the Jimmy Dore show. Should have a round table. It would be an absolute riot. I love what you men do. Free Palestine. Well, thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Yeah, it was a fun show last night. It was really, I thought it came out really good. I was very happy with it. Kurt was great. The team was great. So, yeah, I thought it was,
As for me, guess who are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser?
There you go. Thank you very much, Michael, for that donation.
from what I caught of it, yeah. I was watching the show on the way to Jimmy's show.
Oh, there you go. There you go. While you were riding your bike?
No,
I know.
It's been raining here like fucking.
Yeah.
No, I probably would have taken my bike.
Did you drive? Do you still have the car? Or did you take a cab or something?
No, I mean I hardly used the car. I only rented it a couple weeks. I was like, this is a waste. Like
Right.
I only have time to use it on the weekend, and because Buffalo, everything's so close in, there's really no need for that, especially if you bike as much as I do.
Right.
The weather was better in April though. Like May has just sucked, but it hasn't just been Buffalo. It's been like the whole.
No, it's been cold and rainy here. It's been cold. Like I'm wearing flannel. I'm
Ev-
wearing a full
pretty much
clothes
every
today.
day.
Yeah, I'm wearing a
Every day
flannel
it's
shirt.
raining
It's
here.
June. It's post. I think the pool is open at our complex. I think the swimming pool is open, and we're like
Really?
in fall clothes. Yeah. So
This is my last Buffalo broadcast.
that's right. This is Russ's
it.
last
I'm out.
Buffalo broadcast.
I'm out.
Before he is back in the old studio. All right, folks, we're going to get started today. Reminder, movie night is tonight, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original, 1956. That is the presentation of the evening and interactive stream. So sign up to become a member if you're not already. DoDissidents.locals.com. 672 strong to start things off in the YouTube chat. 321 on the Rumble chat. Smash that like button. Let's get a bigger crowd in here today. And let's get started with the big news. We're on fire with our predictions this year. We really are. We are crushing it. We got very good at this.
We killed Joe Biden.
Yeah, right. We got very good at this. Yes. Between Biden's health diagnosis, there was two others that came true, and now the official dismantling dissolving, I should say, of Doge.
Yes. So Elon has been on a please buy my cars tour. Please buy my cars.
Yeah.
I'm not joined at the hip with Donald Trump. Don't blame me for the hellscape that this bill they're going to pass is about to turn the country into. He's really, really trying to reassert his own brand. I don't think he's going to be very successful.
Well,
But
now that the
this-
Afrikaners are here and they need benefits, now he's like, I don't know, maybe lay off the Medicaid,
Well, yeah. It's very clear that all of the incredible cost cutting that he made with Doge, as we will see, is just going to get sucked up with healthcare for these fat Afrikaners that we brought over here.
That's right.
So, I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on DOGE gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Oh, wow. Spitting in the boss's face, man. Money talks, bullshit walks.
That's right.
So here he is before this. He's been easing his way up to this when he did his disastrous earnings call, aside from claiming that all the protesters at Tesla dealership were paid agent provocateurs. He also at that time started to say, well, I'm not going to spend as much time there. I'm not going to be as involved. We'll see. We'll take a look at the numbers that might have led him to signal that way. So this is what he said in an interview a little bit before this.
I wondered whether you have decided yet how much you're going to spend on the upcoming midterms. Is it you spent a lot more money on the last US election than you envisaged when you were speaking here 3 years ago? Are you going to continue to spend at that kind of level on future elections?
I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
Have you seen the Tesla sales figures?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes.
The whole basis of my ability to put money into politics is crashing and burning around me. There's talk about getting rid of me as the CEO of my own company. So yeah, I think I'm gonna step away.
Is it because of blowback?
Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
Okay. What about political influence beyond the US? How often do you speak to President Putin?
I don't speak to President Putin.
You've never spoken to President Putin?
I was on a video call with him once about 5 years ago.
Okay. That's the only.
Why would you think I speak to President Putin? Oh, you must. Oh, I get it.
Because
you
I've
believe
heard
the
you
legacy.
speak. Actually, I've heard you speak about it. For example, in your West Point speech, you said, "Oh, I challenged President Putin to was it an arm wrestle?" And I know the Wall Street Journal has reported your reported conversations.
Yes.
If you're saying they haven't happened other than once, I'll take that as read.
Is there a worse publication on the face of the earth than the Wall Street Journal? I wouldn't use that to line up my cage for paragraph links.
I could think of a few you'd probably like less than the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, the media is always a really easy target, but it sounds like he made these boasts. So, okay, so you're either lying when you made the boast or you're lying now. So you're a liar. You're saying you're a liar, right? I mean, if there's actual footage, you've made speeches claiming you said this to Putin, then that's not. And we're very critical of Russiagate. Like, clearly she's trying to go there. Not saying no, but it sounds like there was a basis for it. So why don't you just answer it instead of, and that's what they do. Because the media really is horrible. So it's very easy to just deflect that to get out of anything. It's always a get out of jail free card for people like Elon.
But you can see in his eyes and reading his body language, he's done, he's washed, he's over this. Politics chewed him up and spit him out. It's tough business.
Chewed him up and spit him out. He couldn't even swing. You couldn't even swing a judge's race in Wisconsin?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Loser. So this was Trump's rather mild response by comparison to people that haven't given him $200 million.
Elon Musk in a television interview criticized the one big beautiful bill, saying he was disappointed it didn't cut enough, essentially, that it undercut the DOGE efforts. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the reaction's a lot of things. Number one, we have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. We need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. The House was. We have no Democrats. If it's up to the Democrats, they'll take the 65% increase. If that doesn't get approved, this country is going to have a 65% increase in taxes and lots of other problems, big problems, almost bigger than that. But
kids, look, man, I've been around the block a few times. I just want to give the young blood some advice. Find someone who looks at you the way Jeanine Pirro looks at Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have a 65% increase as opposed to the largest tax cut in the history of our country.
That is a woman in love.
We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, she needs a bathroom. Level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing. We're going to make people really be able to. We'll have we'll have the lowest tax rate we've ever had in the history of our country, and tremendous amounts of benefit are going to the middle income people of our country, low and middle income people of our country. So we're going to see what happens, because the Senate, as you know, is negotiating with us, and they have to then go back to the House, and it's got a way to go, but. I have to say, Speaker Johnson and Thune have done an incredible job. John Thune has done a fantastic job, and they're working together with me and others. And I think we have an amazing, if we pull this off, remember, we have 0 Democrat votes because they're bad people. There's something wrong with them. They'll let people pour into our country. Single biggest problem is we had 21 million people pour into our country, probably higher than that. And they're people that weren't supposed to be here. And many of those people are bad. Murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They were closing mental institutions all over the world, not South America, all over the world. They're coming into our country, and we're getting them out. And we're having a hard time because some judges aren't making it very easy for us. And it's tough enough. They approved that. They allowed that to happen to our country. We don't have one Democrat vote. And if I were a Democrat, I'd be voting for this bill, and I'd get elected to any position I want as a Democrat. They're crazy. Oh, yeah. They're voting for a 65% tax increase, and they're only doing it for hatred. They're not doing it for any reason. They know it's terrible. Terrible politics, in my opinion. But so we have no Democrat votes. That means we have to get almost all Republican votes. And I think we're very close to doing that. I think it'll be very successful. Yeah, please.
Well, if it's such great politics, why can't you unify your own caucus behind it?
Yeah, no, you know what's great politics? Cutting Medicaid, which 71% of Republicans are against. That's great politics. But Jeanine Pirro, that was remarkable. That was almost like a weird form of erotica. There's like president erotica. Hey, Donald, meet me at the changing room at Bergdorf's later.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She's really, look at her, man. She's very excited there. So Elon Musk, this is how this ended. Was he asked to leave? No, probably not. All of this has been a prelude to leaving and trying to distance himself. Elon Musk thanks Trump, says he's leaving government work with DOGE. He put out this tweet. As my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. Not that I did that, and I avoided the Pentagon like a place that my entire business depends upon, but wow, we really did a lot there. And the DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government.
Yeah,
he started it's basically saying he started a religion in the government. He's going to convert acolytes over there. A White House official who was granted anonymity to describe personnel matters confirmed Musk's departure and said he will begin offboarding Wednesday night. Musk, the world's richest person, is CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and artificial intelligence startup xAI. Musk said this week that he plans to focus more on his businesses. On a Tesla earnings call in April, Musk said that his time spent running Doge would drop significantly by the end of May. On the same call, he said that he would still spend a day or two per week on government work until the end of Trump's term. It seems that he's backing off on that, I would say. Musk has also said he plans to keep his small office at the White House. During his first 100 days working with the Trump administration, Musk said in an interview with Fox Digital News that he had worked in Washington, D.C. on his DOGE initiative 7 days a week or close to 7 days a week. Legal risks are now building up for Musk, with myriad cases filed in the U.S. alleging that he violated federal laws while leading DOGE. On Wednesday, pension fund leaders sent a letter to Tesla's board saying that they should require Musk to put in 40 hours per week at a minimum at the EV maker as a condition to attain any future CEO pay package. So there's Musk there declaring mission accomplished on the deck of the fighter there. Mission accomplished. And it's about as laughable as when George Bush did it. Elon Musk drastically drops Doge's savings goal from 2 trillion to 150 billion for the year. Well, you know, my work here is done. My work here is done, folks. I've completely you know what he could have done? He could have taken the amount of value that his companies lost as a result of his total brand destruction in this process and just donated it.
Right.
And it would have been more money than they wound up saving. And even that's dicey because as people started to dig into their claims and find they were complete bullshit, they eliminated all means by which you could trace back what they're doing. It was going to be a completely transparent effort until the transparency made them look foolish. This is a little bit from USA Today that tells you a little bit about why Elon's brand has taken such a hit. Doge has boasted of saving the federal government more than 175 billion through cuts, though the group's declared savings have often been exaggerated or misleading. The office has dismantled entire federal agencies, axed government contracts, and led the firings of tens of thousands of federal workers. Who knew that would hurt your brand? Firing tens of thousands of people. Musk downplayed the effect his absence would have on Doge's survival during an interview with USA Today and other media outlets earlier this month. Quote, "Is Buddha needed for Buddhism?" Musk said when asked who on the Doge team will fill the void. Doge is a way of life. This is very much the way they market like raw meat and supplements to the chuds who follow them on X, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life. Doge. It's goes back to the samurai. The samurai were really the inspiration for Doge.
I'm thinking of like the Lion King, where Simba sees his father in the clouds reflected in the lake. That's Elon up there. Doge is inside of you.
Yeah.
He lives. Doge lives in you.
Doge is in everyone. You must find it, grasshopper.
Yeah.
But what's it really about? This is what it's really about. Tesla's sales are plunging everywhere, not only in the United States, all around the world. These are older figures. I haven't seen any updates, but this was already in February. The sales plunged 60% almost in Germany, over 65% in Australia, almost 50% in China. I'm sure that's going to get worse as time goes on. In the last quarter, Tesla reported a 13% drop in first quarter vehicle deliveries. Oh, and they're being sued for rigging the odometer to understate mileage or overstate mileage in order to expire the warranty more quickly. So he's got quite a lot of reasons to try to go and restore his brand. I'm of the opinion as a consumer brand, Tesla is dead. All of the reporting is that this robo-taxi thing is a disaster waiting to happen. He's trying to do it on the cheap with technology that everyone who knows anything about this is saying will not work. He's trying to use regular cameras, which tend to not be able to deal with sun glare, this kind of thing. That's why you use LiDAR. He says that's too expensive. He can do it on the cheap. It does not look like that's going to work. And he was able, as he so often has, to pump up his stock by making claims of things he doesn't deliver, like autonomous driving, which he's been promising since I think 2016, is just a year or two out. Now, he's kind of saved the stock or propped up the stock by announcing the robo-taxis going into action in Austin. Waymo's been working on robo-taxis for over 10 years. They have it in multiple cities. He went on his earnings call and claimed, "Oh, I don't see anybody out there who can compete with Tesla." You're not even, it's like you haven't even fielded a team and you're claiming, well, there's nobody who could beat us in the Super Bowl. What are you talking about?
Right.
You don't even you have not even put a product on the field yet, and Waymo clearly dominates it. But that's Elon, man, and his fans buy his stock every time he just says shit. He says shit like that. They go, more stock.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Look, his appeal to conservatives works in terms of buying his stock. They're not going to buy his car. It's just not their thing. And also the rural, even if they did decide, you know what, I want to try me one of them electric cars. I like Elon. I like his product. They don't have the charging stations in those areas to make owning an electric car really feasible for that customer base. So you're not going to make up for the total loss of liberal customers, which was your whole base in the United States. More and more countries are opening up to BYDs, which by a lot of accounts are actually much better product than Tesla. Now, unlike last year, I have not been predicting a collapse in Tesla stock because of his relationship with Trump. That's unpredictable because you don't know that they could announce that they're going to convert the entire army fleet to Teslas, right? As a consumer, so that could prop up the company. So you can't say where that's going to go. As a consumer brand, it's done.
Well, there's a difference between a customer base and a political coalition. You need a lot fewer people who are loyal to you to make for a viable sort of economic base of consumers and or shareholders. In order to piece together a winning political coalition in America, nationally, or even statewide, in the example of Wisconsin, we saw how that worked out. You have to have a much broader appeal than he has. And when people got a look at what Elon was trying to do, they rejected it pretty soundly. It was pretty clearly a failure. He, gave a lot of people a very big scare, and some people worse than a big scare, fired some people from their jobs, fired some government workers, terrorized some government workers. But that was pretty brief. I mean, when was our worker strike back event? That was late February. That was sort of right past peak Doge. That was just about when the fever broke, and then from there on out, it went down, and now it's gone, and it's gone, South Park style. And he said, my scheduled time with the government is done. I believe I'm right about this. I believe he was supposed to be on through 2026 because the whole idea was it was going to be the 250th anniversary celebration was supposed to coincide with the end of his tenure. Now, they're saying he's going to still have an office in the White House, but he's not going to be a government worker. What the hell is that about?
It's not clear. All right. So there was that 130-day thing. You can only be like a special government employee for 130 days. So at first, when they had the deranged idea that this was going to be popular, they were trying to figure out ways around it.
Right.
But now clearly they have a mutual interest. Look, I mean, Trump, whatever his failings, he's pretty politically astute. he knows Elon is poison.
Right. Oh,
that
look
it's
at the
not good
calendar.
for
I
him
guess
to
it's
have.
time to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for all the help. Yeah, bye.
Bye. You did a great job, Elon. Thanks
Well,
very
we'll
much.
talk to you when we need checks for the midterms.
Yep. And, I had a feeling it would fizzle out like this. That's why one of my 2025 predictions was the dissolution of DOGE. And here we are. I actually expected more of the administration to play out this way in terms of promises made, promises half-assed at best. And it turns out the one thing they are delivering on is terrorizing the immigrant population and chilling pro-Palestine speech. Those are the two things that they have really delivered on. Notice I did not say mass deportations. They have not delivered on mass deportations. They have delivered in making a spectacle of the deportations they have run for the purpose of terrorizing people and manufacturing consent for a police state. In that respect, they've kept their word. In most other respects, they have fallen drastically short, including
Don't worry, the payoff's
DOGE.
coming. It's coming.
Yes. It's on its way any day. All right, 50 milligrams. Thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate that very much. Brad Gilbert, thanks for the $2. Near Toronto, skies have been sprayed all month. If you know, you know. Thanks, Brad Gilbert. Pete, thanks for the $10. Just watched Hedges' new interview on Our American Israel about justifications used by both divine colonizing ideologies. I highly suggest it could be a great segment. Free Palestine. Thanks for the tip on that. Appreciate that very much. Hillary Hinton says a Zionist, a Palestinian, and a douchey Irish lead singer wearing a laughable hair system walk into a bar. Don't forget to try the borscht. I'm here all week. Haha, good one, Hillary Hinton. Thank you very much. For Zen's sake, says the Witkoff ceasefire draft says Trump guarantees for it personally. Source Scahill. Does that mean we'll get to see a real-life celebrity death match between Trump and Bibi if Israel breaks it? We will have to look into that and wait with bated breath. Good show yesterday, Keaton. You and Kurt work well together. Thank you, Biden. Appreciate that. Yeah, Kurt was great yesterday. It was. I thought we had good rhythm. Good rhythm, as they say in the business. Noah Goop, the real war crime is the price of these bonds. Oy vey. That's right, Noah Goop. A bill is just like a woman, can be big or beautiful, but not both, unless you got that ass. Thank you, Stoopside. Appreciate that. That's good insight. Yeah, I can't. Why don't you write for Minpress News anymore? Didn't you say you used to write for them? You with that kind of prose, they should hire you back in a second. You should submit
it's
that.
probably that kind of prose that got him fired.
Maybe we will see. All right, let's move on to sort of a part two of Elon Out at DOGE, the big beautiful bill dissenters.
Okay, so they are trying to pass this so that it'll be filibuster proof as a budget reconciliation bill, which just requires a simple majority in the Senate. Even so, because of the conflicting impulses in their coalition, it's not looking great. Top Republicans threaten to block Trump's spending bill if national debt is not reduced. Now, remember, this bill adds, by various estimates, $3 to $5 trillion to the deficit. So their claim that this is all about restoring fiscal sanity and reducing the deficit, it's total bullshit. It is all about continuing and accelerating the process of redistributing the wealth to the wealthiest people in the country and taking away what little social safety net protections the rest of the people have. That's it. That's it. This is an example of people in leadership who absolutely hate the people they're governing. They hate you. They literally hate you. There is no other explanation for wanting to give more money to people who are the richest people that have ever existed on the planet at a moment when you have wealth inequality that we have never seen. We have never seen. It's worse than medieval Europe. We had a revolution to get rid of an aristocracy. This is worse than an aristocracy. Aristocracy, they just had land. You take them out, you take the land, you took care of the problem. They've got their money everywhere, right? They've got this web controlling all the means of production around the world. This is something that's very difficult to address or take up root and branch, and they want to make that worse. Donald Trump has been warned by fiscal hawks within his own party in the U.S. Senate that he must get serious about cutting government spending and reducing the national debt, or else they will block the passage of his signature tax cutting legislation known as the Big Beautiful Bill. You know, a lot of people tell me this country is very regarded. So I said, for a regarded country, we should have a regarded name for the bill.
Yeah.
Trump has invested. You see how we get around YouTube? Trump has invested a large portion of his political capital in the massive package. It extends the 2017 tax cuts from his first administration in return for around about 1 trillion in benefits cuts, including reductions in the health insurance scheme for low-income families, Medicaid, and to supplemental nutrition assistance programs, SNAP, food stamps. The bill squeaked through U.S. House by just one vote last Thursday. It now faces a perilous welcome in the upper legislative chamber. Sunday's admonitions from prominent senators, angered by the failure to address the budget deficit, bodes ill for Trump's agenda given the tightness of the Republicans' congressional majorities. The Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, can afford to lose only 3 votes from among his party's 53. Thune has indicated that changes to the bill might be needed to bring refuseniks on side. That, in turn, could present the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, with a headache. The House will have to approve any changes made in the Senate under the process of budget reconciliation, which allows spending packages to be fast-tracked through Congress, avoiding a Senate filibuster of 60 votes. The final contents of the bill will need to be blessed by both chambers, with Democrats almost certain to vote unanimously in opposition. So Ron Johnson has kind of taken the lead. He's not the only one, but he's really taken the lead of those who object to it on the basis that it expands the deficit. So he says there are enough votes in the Senate to block Trump's big, beautiful bill until Trump gets serious about spending reduction and reducing the deficit. So here's what he said on Fox about the real intentions of the bill.
Work requirements for Medicaid don't kick in until 2029. What's with that?
Precisely.
What's with that?
Again, this is a game they play. They get a score. Again, this is like Whitby. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. You know, we're going to cut spending 10 years when I'm not even in Congress. You know, again, that's the problem. This is not serious. It's exacerbating the problem. It's not solving it. I've got a great video on my X page. All our Republican leaders saying we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And this bill is primarily about tax cuts. We can't afford to cut taxes when we're running over $2 trillion a year deficits for the next 10 years as far as the eye can see.
Okay, I've got to leave it at that. But Senator Ron.
Who knew Ron Johnson was such a lefty? I know he was such a flaming lefty. Ron Johnson says this bill is about tax cuts. It's about tax cuts. You don't get much harder right than Ron Johnson. He is telling you straight out, this is not about fiscal responsibility. It's not about reform. It's not. Did he say it's about waste, fraud, and abuse? He didn't say that. And he believes there's waste, fraud, and abuse. It's not that he doesn't believe that. He believes there are all these illegal immigrants getting Medicaid. He is saying that the bill is about tax cuts. So at that point, there's really no basis for dispute. And we've shown this again and again, and we really can't show it enough. You get these tax cuts that Trump wants. 68% of that goes to the richest 20%. The next 17 goes to the 20% after that. So upper middle class, right? 10% goes to the middle 20%. Bottom 40, ungats.
Yep.
you get 4%, or you get, if you're the poorest, you get 1% of that money. That's who it's for. And just to put a point on it, who gets what here? The richest 1% end up with a $78,370 tax cut. Now, when you think about this, how perverse, absurd, and deranged it is to give a tax cut like that to Jeff Bezos, to Elon Musk, to Bill Gates. They wouldn't even notice that amount of money. That amount of money wouldn't pay for the gas for one of their yacht trips. You're going to upend all of society? You're going to shred what little laughable social safety net America has by comparison to other Western industrialized nations to give a tax cut to the richest 1% that they wouldn't even notice because they're so fucking rich. That's not about fiscal anything. That is ideological. That is about asserting the point of view that a certain class of people should have everything and everyone else should have nothing. That is what that is. That is a statement of philosophy. That is a statement of purpose. That has absolutely nothing to do with money, even for the people that money is going to, because they wouldn't even notice that. So here is Johnson kind of sticking his neck out. We know the boss doesn't like this kind of talk, saying he really doesn't care who likes it.
Care less if he's upset. I'm concerned about my children, my grandchildren, and the fact that we are stealing from them. We are stealing from our children and grandchildren. $37 trillion in debt, and we're going to add to it as Republicans? That is unacceptable. And that's why there's no way I'm going to vote for this bill in its current form.
And he went on with Maria, how do you say her name? Bartiromo,
I think.
Bartiromo. He went on with her to call this a deep state budget.
Line by line, expose the grotesque waste and fraud and abuse. My guess, Maria, you go through $7,000 billion of spending, you'll be able to eliminate hundreds of billions people wouldn't even know other than the grifters who are sucking down that waste, fraud, and abuse. You have to do the work. You have to have the time to do the work.
How much of that cuts Medicaid? Because that's what the Democrats are going to campaign on. So how much of it cuts some of the entitlement programs, Social Security? Does it change Social Security? Does it change Medicare, Medicaid?
No, I've completely taken Medicare and Social Security off the table when I do those pre-pandemic options. You know, listen, we need to reform the Obamacare portion of Medicaid. That's what's putting at risk Medicaid for the vulnerable, for disabled children. Again, we're all going to repeal and replace Obamacare, but now people are defending it. But again, you can even eliminate Medicaid. I've shown that, and there's still hundreds of billions of dollars, a couple $100 billion in discretionary, a couple $100 billion in other mandatory that is above and beyond 2019 outlays, plus up for population inflation. Fully inflated 2019. There's literally about $400 to $500 billion of spending that's above those levels. So again, go back there as a business person would. This would be a 5-minute conversation in a business. Say, guys, I told you could increase your budget based on inflation and the number of customers we serve. You're 10% above that. Cut it. Get back down to a reasonable level. We need President Trump to lead on this. He needs to be fully committed to not funding the deep state at President Biden's levels.
Yeah, funding the deep state. All right, so this is what I've said repeatedly. Look, Ron Johnson, obviously, I do not agree with his politics or his vision of what kind of budget he would want, but at least that's honest. I feel like he honestly believes that you need to cut the deficit by any means possible. As he said, rightly, this is not about that, man. It is about tax cuts for the rich. He doesn't have a problem with these Medicaid cuts and that kind of thing. But it adds to the deficit. So Josh Hawley has been kind of attacking this bill from the other angle. And as you would expect, Collins, Murkowski are also speaking out about what they want to do with Medicaid. So this is what he had to say.
This bill comes over from the House to the Senate and you have to vote on it. Are you no if this bill does not change?
Yo, I'm not going to support this bill from the House in this form. I think that's clear. It's got to change before it can pass the Senate. and I continue to stand by my line in the sand, which is no Medicaid benefit cuts. Listen, if you want to do work requirements, I'm all for that. I bet every Republican and I bet most Americans would agree with that. But we're not talking here about just work requirements. The House goes much, much, much further than that. This is real Medicaid benefit cuts. I can't support that. No Republican should support that. We're the party of the working class, Manu. We need to act like it.
Okay, so yeah, you're not the party of the working class in practice. You're the party of the working class in terms of having stolen the Democrats' old voters, as Thomas Frank has written about so extensively. But yeah, we've talked about this a lot. Like, how long could the Republicans continue to do Reaganomics, which is an economics designed simply to benefit wealthy donors, as their base becomes increasingly this working class base? And the Medicaid thing really just brings those contradictions to a head. But 71% of Republicans are against Medicaid cuts. People in these rural red districts are heavily dependent on Medicaid. And just a little bit about, and okay, he's for the work requirements. We've talked about that. They've done this in states. It's caused people who are supposed to get coverage not to get coverage. It's been a disaster. And that's the point. That's the point. All of these claims of work requirements, who could argue with that? They're going in that direction because it polls well. But in reality, it just creates another barrier to getting coverage. They want to make it as confusing, difficult, bureaucratic, and virtually impossible to get Medicaid as they can. That's their way of cutting it without coming out and saying they're cutting it. Now, Holly claims there are things in there I'm not aware of, actually, that are just straight up cuts. I assume he knows more about it than I do. That's something I'm going to look into. But I just want to make this point because even Johnson says this. Bannon, who's also skeptical of the Medicaid cuts, makes this claim about all the illegal immigrants getting Medicaid, which, as you would expect, that's impossible. Like, you cannot, as an illegal immigrant, apply for Medicaid. So, a little bit about that. According to the CBO, almost 8 million people would be thrown off Medicaid if this bill goes through. Speaker Johnson tried to dismiss the concerns, telling CBS News that 1.4 million of those vulnerable people were illegal aliens receiving benefits, and a further 4.8 million were able-bodied individuals choosing not to work and game the system. I got to ask you, man, like, how many people, if there were that many people doing this, wouldn't you know some? Like, who do you know is like a healthy, able-bodied person who just stays home and gets Medicaid?
Right.
Like, do you know anybody? Like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Don't tell me about your one cousin Cletus who does this. I mean, in general, this is not a thing. Certainly not a thing that would generate those kinds of numbers.
Even if they do exist in those numbers, it's not. We got into this because that's a talking point of his, because he said it on CBS according to this article. He also told it to Jake Tapper in the CNN interview. It's not fraudulent to be poor and unemployed. Like that. That's not fraud. Like, if you're a poor person, you're eligible for Medicaid.
Well, sure. Well,
Simple.
They're implying that they are not trying to work, or they're just, they're
even if they're not trying to work, that's not fraud. You can look down upon that person if you are so fragile as to need someone to look down upon in that way. But it's perfectly legal to be a poor and unemployed person. Like, the idea that that's fraudulent or that's gaming the system, that's nonsense. Okay, if they're gaming the system, you trade places with them. You be poor and unemployed, and they'll take your job, for 140 grand a year, whatever. Do you want to trade places with them? Like, it's not fraud. Like, the whole framing of the conversation is absurd. Healthcare should be free at the point of service for everybody.
Yes. At that point, really, if you want to put it in the broadest context, this conversation shouldn't even be taking place.
It shouldn't even be happening.
It's barbaric. Yeah. What are we, one of only 2 countries that don't offer universal health care? Don't tell me, oh, well, there are problems in these systems. Well, you got what, 500,000 medical bankruptcies a year in our system?
Right, exactly.
That's a pretty bad system. You got people who have insurance who can't get the coverage that they need.
Right. Now, if you're taking in 100 grand a year in cash in an illegal lemonade stand and getting Medicaid, that's fraud. But to be poor and unemployed is not fraud.
it's fraud, but people shouldn't even be in that position.
Right. Right.
You know, there was a great comic strip that went around, you know, Breaking Bad in any other country. I have cancer. Oh, we're going to take care of
Yeah,
you.
that's it.
The end.
The end.
Only in America would that plot even make any kind of sense that the
Right.
guy had to become a meth
Right.
dealer to pay for his health care. An analysis by the nonpartisan factcheck.org found that the claim that 1.4 million undocumented migrants were on Medicaid was false. People living in the U.S. without immigration papers are not eligible for the federal program other than to receive emergency medical treatment. That's, you go to an emergency room, they have to treat you, but they'll bill you if they can find you.
Of course.
More than 1 million undocumented immigrants are in danger of losing health benefits as a result of Trump's cuts, but this assistance is provided by the states and has nothing to do with Medicaid. Now this is Mike Johnson, who's seeing the potential of this whole bill going up in smoke and not doing the boss's will of having this done by the 4th of July. Apparently, Trump pulled together the guys in the House and dropped the F-bomb and told them to get it together, and that's why they were able to finally pass it with one vote. So they're scared to piss him off.
They want to make some changes to the House bill. Senate Majority Leader John Thune told CNN the Senate's going to write its own bill. Even though they have a larger majority than you do, what is your message to your colleagues in the Senate?
Thanks, Jay. Great to be with you. Look, I've been very consistent with our colleagues in the Senate. We worked hand in glove with them all through this process, remembering that the House began this more than a year ago. It was March of last year when we got our committee chairs together and told them to begin to prepare for this massive reconciliation package. We believed at that time, more than a year ago, that we would win the White House, the Senate, and the House and have unified government and have this really once-in-a-generation opportunity to do so much in one piece of legislation. So I met with the Senate Republicans, all my colleagues over there, last week on Tuesday at their weekly luncheon, and I encouraged them, to do their work, of course, as we all anticipate, but to make as few modifications to this package as possible, because remembering that we've got to pass it one more time to ratify their changes in the House, and I have a very delicate balance here, a very delicate equilibrium that we've reached over a long period of time, and it's best not to meddle with it too much.
Okay. So, in other words, this thing is being held together by spit and baling wire. And if all of these different ideological factions in the Republican Party, including Josh Hawley, who rightly has said straight out, cutting Medicaid is going to be politically suicidal, and I think he's right about that. You want to talk about, I think the Democrats did a lot of things under Biden that made people say, anything but this. Yeah, you have people can't get any kind of health care, as bad as our healthcare system is.
Yeah.
You make that really substantially worse, largely for people who voted for Trump. And yeah, you're talking about like the one thing that could make the Democrats palatable, because they certainly haven't reformed themselves in any way that makes them any better than they were 6 months ago. But they could just win simply on saying we're going to restore your Medicaid if you go through with a bill like this. And then on the other side, man, these budget hawks, these guys like Thomas Massie, they're not fucking around. Like, they're serious about that. Like, I think they're less likely to compromise than the Medicaid guys. The Medicaid guys, look at what Hawley's even saying within that. Everyone's for work requirements. Well, work requirements are a backdoor way of cutting Medicaid. So even that is really not a reliable block. If they're really going to run into trouble, I think it's going to be the deficit hawks.
Well, it's really difficult to see where this goes. This passed the House with 215 votes. They didn't even get a majority. The reason it passed is because the Democrats are dying. I said on the Jimmy Dore show last night, 3 Democrats have died since Trump won in November. I mean, that's a white genocide, pretty much. I mean, there's a genocide of House Democrats, right? Terrible, horrible stuff.
And all of them said, I don't plan to die. If I die, it wasn't my intention.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
It's
no,
very suspicious.
it's really difficult to see where this goes. Like, I don't know how they get this through. I really don't, because they have these two very disparate factions within the party. And they have some dissent in the Senate, obviously, between Hawley, Rand Paul, Ron Johnson. That leaves them just one more, and then they're screwed there, right? They can only afford to lose one more past that point. If they change it up, they got to go back to the House and see if they can get it through the House again based on that one vote. And then you have that problem.
That's why Johnson's saying that. Yeah,
exactly. Then you have that problem all over again. It's very, very difficult to do what they're trying to do with this little margin. You know, I mean, one of the ways they kind of screwed themselves was they underperformed in the House last year, which who'd have seen that coming, right? That the House margin was going to be that narrow. But that's really what it comes down to, is they just don't have enough of a majority to let Massey be Massey and whatever. Okay, they'll take their symbolic no vote. No, those things can really sink it now. And yeah, this is political poison, contrary to what Trump says. Well, you know, the Democrats, it would be great for them politically if they voted for it. If that were true, why aren't all the Republicans voting for it? Right? Like, if it's such a political boon, then why can't you get it through? You have the majority in both chambers. So I don't know how it's going to shake out. I really don't.
Well,
it's a very, very difficult situation for them because they have to keep both the moderates, you know, a lot of these blue state moderate people happy, and they're going to have to keep the Freedom Caucus people happy and the Freedom Caucus equivalents in the Senate. You know, it's not easy.
Yeah, and you did that story the other night about this is the least of it. There are terrifying things buried in this bill about suspending the court's ability to enforce contempt rulings, about deregulating AI for 10 years. I mean, these are the kinds of things, you know, I've said this my, you know, last couple days in Buffalo. I would have bought a house, but I'm going by the heat rules. Don't commit to anything you can't walk away from in 30 seconds. That's the discipline. I'm waiting to see how this plays out, man. If that bill passes with some of the things that you covered in that segment, I'm out of here, man. I'm out of here. They say Spain is pretty. I've never been.
I've never been to Spain. $45 billion with a B dollars for new immigrant jails. And now I know it's not American to really give a shit about this, but hey, I do. Call me a softie. Charging asylum seekers $1,000 at the border when they come to seek asylum. How are they going to make that trip up north with $1,000?
Of course, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So no, it's an incredibly cruel and dystopian bill for reasons that are not grabbing the headlines. But the reason why the Medicaid is grabbing the headlines is, yeah, obviously stands to reason this is what affects the most people in a very existential way. And so yeah, this is poison. This bill is absolute poison. And it's just a question of, can they smooth over enough rough edges? That's harder and harder as your majority becomes narrower and narrower. And they took office this term with a very narrow majority in the House. And so that makes this a real problem for them. And we will see how it plays out. They have a little over a month to solve it. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how it works out, because I really can't predict at this point. It is a real pickle. All right.
They should really call this the Caligula bill.
The Caligula bill, the big, beautiful pickle. That's what they should call it. Vicky Blair, thanks for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate that, Vicky Blair. Matrix, thanks for the $1.99. Fear of night, fear of not night. Thank you. Plus the free Palestine flag. Thank you, Matrix. Appreciate that. Michael Castillo says, Russ, that was so funny. She was getting... where is it? She was getting really wet. Damn. Oh, with the Janine Pirro. Yes. Thank you, Michael.
She looked like she was getting very excited, man. She definitely looked like she was checking out his package there.
She's a fan. That's for sure. The Willie Bragg Show. Hey, Willie, what's up? Thanks for the $10, man. While I didn't suffer from Trump derangement syndrome from 2017 to 2021, the second helping of Trump really sucks. Democrats, however, will only pretend to be against the obese orange man. Thank you, Willie Bragg. Use the Doge, Luke, says Eric Torres. Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Eric Torres. No meaning of life question. I don't like spoilers. Just curious about the sensory deprivation experience. Maybe I missed it.
Oh yeah. I never. Yeah, I took a picture too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. It's funny, man, when you go in there because your body's just not used to being able to completely let go of muscle control. Like you strain for a little while, like your neck starts to hurt because your body thinks it has to make sure not to sink. And
Right.
even though you don't have to, you don't have to. Eventually, the muscles give up, and then yeah, it's like floating in space. It's very cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, I was a little disappointed not to regress to an earlier primordial form of myself.
Right.
That didn't happen. Whatever altered states would lead you to believe, but it was cool. It was cool.
Cool. Did you catch Janine Pirro climax the moment Trump said Johnson? Haha, good one, Kim and G. Bonzo Beans, Rumble Switch suggestion, Mike Nichols and Elaine May sketches, very Jewish, very funny. That's an idea for an intermission. Though karaoke is this Sunday's intermission, Russell's karaoke performance.
Oh, yeah.
Albu Kid says, thanks for the $5. The only reason DOGE exists is to data mine and steal our information for his upcoming government contracts. The AI application for what he now knows about us is terrifying. Yeah, I don't doubt that. That is a legit concern for sure. All right, folks, we're going to move right along here. So, file this under random acts of hostility from the Trump administration. Marco Rubio, U.S. to aggressively revoke visas of Chinese students. Because, hey, why not? The U.S. will aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Wednesday, in an escalation of the Trump administration's conflicts with China and academia. Rubio's announcement did not specify how many students would lose their ability to study in the U.S., but suggested the effort would focus on people with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or those studying sensitive subjects. That's right. Under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department will work with the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields, he said in a statement. We will also revive visa criteria to enhance scrutiny of all future visa applications from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. The State Department's targeting of Chinese students reflects how worsening geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China have poisoned the two nations' long-standing educational ties. It also appeared to catch even some in the government off guard. A consular official speaking on condition of anonymity because of a ban on talking to journalists expressed surprise at the directive, saying U.S. embassies have received no instructions about it. About 277,000 Chinese students studied in the U.S. last year, making them the second largest group of foreign students in the U.S. after people from India. Even if just a threat, Rubio's announcement is likely to decisively end the popularity of U.S. universities and colleges for Chinese students. If you go around Silicon Valley, you see thousands of Chinese students or former Chinese students who are making enormous contributions to the United States, to our entrepreneurship, said Stephen Orlins, president of the nonprofit National Committee on U.S.-China Relations. Revoking their visas will cut off the pipeline and create long-term damage to the United States. Rubio's targeting of the students is the latest in a series of moves in Washington to address the perceived national security threats posed by China through academia. Higher education has long been a focus of the Department of Justice's probes of foreign espionage operations, though not without controversy. The DOJ's now defunct China Initiative, a program launched in the first Trump administration targeting Chinese academics at U.S. universities, was accused of racial profiling and conducting flawed investigative work. Oh, that doesn't sound like the Trump administration at all. Republicans were quick to offer support of the administration's threat to revoke visas. Of course, they were. Senator Jim Banks, America First, with a flag here, quote tweeting Rubio's announcement. Representative Riley Moore, what did you think America First meant? Vibes? Papers? Essays? No, I thought it meant stupidity, self-destructive stupidity, and that checks out because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what this is.
We understood what it was.
Yeah,
We got
I know
we got
perfectly
you.
well what it is.
We're with
Yes.
you.
Yes, and this is totally consistent with a completely delusional interpretation of what this country is, what it stands for, and what it's capable of. Like you really look at America and you think, wow, there's great potential here. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm not running for anything. I can say that. Okay? Don't vote for me. I'm not running for anything. I don't need your vote. I just need a platform where I can tell you the truth as I see it. That's all I need.
Words with you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, we need to get all these Chinese students out here so that the next crop of geniuses from this country can fill
No,
the
you know
void.
what? You know what's really funny about this? Because I sent this to you.
Act
the
like this
other
is
day.
a fucking brain trust here that we got running on. This is a strip mall. A strip mall of fat morons. That's what this country is. What we can do. We don't need them. I think we do. I think we do actually.
So I was in this beautiful building here, Ellicott Square, and I'm really enjoying the architecture. And I hear this harpy voice. I hear this shrill, piercing voice. I'm like, oh my God, I know that voice. And so they have a TV on with Fox with Batya Ungar Sargon being interviewed.
Right.
And the stuff that she said was just so batshit insane. It was really amazing. So she frames everything as, the elites. Everything I don't like is elite. Everything I don't like is woke. Everything I don't like is elite. That's her spin on it. So she made the remarkable claim that really being against Israel is an elite thing because working class and middle class people are actually very protective of Jews. Now, as a Jew from the working class, I can promise you that's not true. So where I wouldn't say that it's any worse anti-Semitism, maybe a little more open. Probably richer people don't say things like Jew me down, but working class people sure do. I promise you. So that's just a way of framing everything as, yeah, the Fox audience hates elites. Let's tell them that it's elite to be against Israeli genocide. But then to this point, she goes on because she was asked about this, about Trump going after Harvard to stop international students from coming in. And she said exactly that. I think that we have incredible talent here in this country right here, and those people deserve those opportunities. Okay, this is part of what's so crazy about that. Aren't the fiscal policies in the bill that Trump's trying to pass going to do everything possible to cut off opportunities for the kinds of people that you're theoretically talking about? Like, what are they doing? Okay, if you were making a corresponding effort at the same time that you're doing this, and we're going to also give $50 billion to American high schools and junior high schools, some of them in the most underfunded schools and neighborhoods, to help prepare them for the jobs of tomorrow. Now, then you could debate the merit of the policy, but you could say it's an honest policy with some kind of an actual America First agenda. How are you you're doing everything possible to keep people who are down already down. She's trying to frame it, and they're trying to frame it as, yeah, we're going to get that spunky kid who doesn't have a lot of money, but he has a lot of ideas. What are you doing to help that kid in with any of these policies?
Right, exactly. You're not nurturing that kind of an environment here. This is what I mean. This is a society in decline. And unless you want to steepen that decline, you're going to have to reverse that dynamic before you do a thing like this, assuming you want to do a thing like this. And I'm not saying I endorse a thing like this. I don't personally. But even if you were, it's the same logic with the tariffs. You have to establish a base of manufacturing before you try to impose draconian tariffs on other countries. You have to stimulate some culture of, I don't even want to say intellectualism because that sounds a little snooty and I'm not an academically minded person myself, but curiosity, a culture of some kind of enlightenment before you do this. Instead, you have a completely lobotomized culture.
Right.
And now you're going to shut the door on the 250,000 Chinese people who are coming here and crushing it for our companies. What do you think the result of that is going to be? Well, Carl Zahn knows what the result of that's going to be. Good. Ameridumbs finally getting a society they deserve. Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly
Yep.
right. That's
Yep.
exactly right. It's 100% spot on.
And the people who have the qualifications that they're talking about, those kids are usually from backgrounds of privilege, and they're getting into college and
course.
getting ahead just fine.
Of course.
Like really, the premise is there are people who are being overlooked. Well, you're also not giving those people the tools they would need to fill these slots instead.
Of
So
course.
who's going to benefit from this?
Right. Exactly. So Apocalypsios says, you're a moron, meaning Marco Rubio. This will only make, or one of the Congress people who, praised this, forget who he was replying to. You're a moron. This will only make America more like the Flintstones and China even more like the Jetsons. That's right. What is this screen cap of? This is a video of top industrial aesthetics in China. This is Asia's largest refinery in Ningbo City. Ningbo City. Here it is. No sound for copyright purposes here.
Coincidentally, that's Frank Miller's follow-up to Sin City.
There you go. Yes. Ningbo City. Look at this. Look at this. This looks like you're looking 100 years into the future. Anybody know what the population of Ningbo City is? 9.6 million people. This is bigger than the largest city in the United States. I had never heard of it until last night. I would wager more than half the audience has never heard of it. There are places like this.
I haven't. I've been looking to travel into China. I've never heard of it.
This is what I mean. There are places like this in China that are bigger and economically more significant and more powerful than our largest cities here in this country that we've never even fucking heard of. Right. And we are going to slam the door on them and think that that is going to immediately stimulate a wellspring of enlightenment and success here. It's completely insane. Now, the Chinese, of course, had something to say.
Just to mention, Hong Kong University, I think that's what it's called. They're jumping on this, man. They've been offering not just Chinese students, anyone who had been accepted to an American elite university who's now been barred from entry to automatically be admitted to their university.
Yeah, well, they're going to take advantage. Of course, that's what that tweet was. That's going to lead to more of this and more decay here in the short term. Right. It's the same logic as the tariffs. Assuming you even want to do this, and I don't even think it's a good idea at all, you're doing it completely out of order.
Right.
Completely out of order. Okay, right. So here's the Chinese response to this. They lodged a formal protest as U.S. to revoke Chinese students' visas. They talk fast. That's just an observation. That's not a judgment. But I'm going to have to keep up with these subtitles. The U.S.'s unreasonable decision to revoke Chinese students' visas under the pretext of ideology and national security seriously infringes upon the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese students and disrupts normal culture and people-to-people exchanges between the two countries. China firmly opposes this and has lodged a protest with the U.S. Such a politicized and discriminatory action lays bare the U.S. lie that it upholds the so-called freedom and openness and will only further damage its image in the world and national reputation. Yes, that's right. That's right. This is just born of such arrogance. It's just it's so stupid. It's so just self-sabotaging. And these are the characteristics of empires in decline. Right. Okay, so let's just think about this. In the name of security and preventing sabotage, right? You're going to close the door on 250,000 Chinese people who leave China and come here to give to this country what they could have given to their own. We're going to say, no, we don't want you because we're afraid that 31 of you might be spies. So we're just going to close the door on 300,000. It's totally insane. This is so stupid. Right. It's so self-destructive. It's so arrogant. And it is born of a delusion that this country is and is equipped to be something that it is plainly not at this point. At this point, it's not. Like, time progresses, and as time progresses, trends accelerate. And the trends of anti-intellectualism, the trends of anti-enlightenment, the trends of underemployment, yes, and despair, and these are all, I don't say this to like, I know it can sound this way, and I'm okay. I'll take that. Okay, from time to time, I know it sounds like I'm rubbing it in. I really don't mean to rub it in. I'm a populist guy. We're all about class politics here. I don't say this to like run the working class into the ground. I say this as an observation. Like, we are not equipped at this moment to shut the door on the world because these trends have accelerated to the point where we are where we are, which is in a state of despair, dissolution, and disarray. And in that sense, I think the plane has really crashed into the mountain. This is why we were as emphatic as we were 10 years ago about the Bernie Sanders campaign, for all of what turned out to be true about him and about the fruits of that movement. The argument we were making is that this is really your last chance to pull up and clear the mountain, at which point you could start building towards something like this. 10 years later, guess what? It's too late for that. It's too late for that. At this point, you can't slam the door
Even
on
2020 was too late.
Even 2020 was too late. But now, forget about it. We're in shambles, as our friend Nick would say. We're in shambles, and this is only going to make it worse. It will only make it worse. I promise you. It is plainly obvious.
I look at America and I think of this quote.
I love you, but you are not serious.
Yeah, it's not serious. Exactly. It's just not serious.
And that's all across the ideological spectrum. It's just, the stuff that Parenti talked about that's been done to subvert the left and to get it caught up in nonsense culture war quagmires.
Right.
Same thing has been done on the other side. I mean, you got people fucking who can't sleep at night thinking about freaking Afrikaners. Like it's, it's, a lot of that I think is intended. It's just a psyop. But it's really amazing to see them constructing a country that is so much the country that they warned us about, right? You're creating a closed society.
Right.
With very strict scrutiny over who comes through the borders, in effect, eliminating a lot of the people from coming through the borders. This is what I keep saying. What Trump did, what he's done already, I think that damage is impossible to reverse already. It is very difficult to reverse the intangibles of brand destruction.
Yes.
He has destroyed very quickly the American brand. What does that mean? That means open and de facto boycotts of our products all around the world. How long is it going to be before you don't want to be seen with an Apple phone because it's American, right? As America becomes a curse word around the world, as it has been building towards for quite a while. In terms for us living here, you think this is going to be a better country when no one wants to come here? Tourists don't want to come here. Academics don't want to come here. Students don't want to come here. And yes, immigrants don't want to come here. Motherfucker, you going out in a field to pick strawberries? Really? You going out to pick strawberries? You want to pay for strawberries what you'd be paying? Now, whenever you say that, they say, oh, so you're saying it's about the low wages. It is for you when you go to the supermarket. Like, you say you want this, but have you thought through the chain of events that are going to come from it? And let's assume, okay, you're going to get higher pay. From what I understand, those farm workers, now there have been reforms. They have, if they're not being worked illegally, have to be paid a minimum wage as it is. All right, so you think you're going to get a bunch of Americans to go out there and work in the fields for $15 an hour, for 20, for 25? Like, that is hard, backbreaking work. And yes, for a variety of reasons, the country is fat, out of shape, and unhealthy, right? Like, do you even have enough people who could go and do these things?
And I'm sorry, intellectually stunted. The same dynamic applies to the PMC and those aspiring to enter the PMC. Trump makes a big deal out of, well, they're teaching remedial math at Harvard with the implication that they're letting non-white people in there who can't do advanced math. That's what he's really trying to say there.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen to our curriculum when we slam the door on foreign applicants? Well, you think we're going to get brighter here? Like, what do you think is going to happen
people
there?
are just going to get smart. That's what I'm saying. The people
are not just
smart
going
enough
to get smarter because you lock the Chinese out of the country. It's absurd.
The Americans who are qualified to go to Harvard, they're usually from rich families. They've had all the advantages of test prep and tutors and all of this. They're going to places like Harvard anyway. Right. So who's these new people that don't get in? Like, do you look around at this country and see a bunch of people with that level of talent who are just not being allowed? Now, don't get me wrong. I often felt growing up, there were a lot of people around me who under different circumstances would have been artists, would have been writers. Like, there is definitely a class element where people tend to only think of their opportunities in terms of what they see around them, and they just don't see themselves being that. Now, one way you could get around that is if you give them opportunities to explore that as possibly what their life is really going to be. Maybe I could be an engineer. Maybe I don't have to be a carpenter. Maybe I don't have to be a steam fitter. Maybe I could do that. But they're not putting any resources into that. And you still, this is still a bad idea. This is the communist police state, right? That we were supposed to be terrified of. You can't say what you want, or they're going to deport you. They're going to send you to some foreign torture prison on flimsy premises, extra legally. There's the arbitrary exercise of power where they ignore the courts, and you can't fight the state. Like, isn't this everything they said we're not?
Right.
Supposed to be the beacon of freedom. Like, what kind of country do you think it's going to be when they've essentially closed the borders, which is the effect of a lot of what they're doing? You're going to live in this country with closed borders.
Yep.
How do you think that's going to play out?
Yep. Very scary stuff, indeed. All right. Well, why don't we do our CBD ad now? So why don't you just duck out and I'll knock this out. All right. Beautiful. All righty, folks. Hey, if you're still tossing and turning all night and feeling edgy during the day, let me tell you about CBD from CB Distillery. Millions are turning to their CBD for relief because it works. In fact, over 90% of customers report better sleep with CBD. I first got into CBD when I had interrupted sleep 4 years ago, back in 2021. Could not sleep through the night to save my life, and my uncle turned me on to CBD, and I have been taking it since. It's not just sleep, though. CB Distillery offers targeted formulations for just about everything. Sleep, yes, but also stress, mood, and focus, plus pain after exercise. They even have CBD for pets. There's no THC, so if your dog gets into that kind of stuff, that could cause a problem. CBD does not have any THC, so it is safe for pets. And it's all made with the highest quality clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. My favorite of the products are the oils and the tinctures, and if you want to try the oils, a great way to start on oils would be to actually get these soft gels. So these are CBD oil in soft gel form. The cool thing that's convenient about the soft gels is they're pre-dosed, pre-measured, 30 milligrams a pop. Just take some water and swallow one down. It doesn't taste like anything, so if that's a barrier to you, these are great and easy to use and a great starter product. They also have sleep gummies, which are great as well. So they have a whole range of products there, and CBD can be pricey, but not at cbdistillery.com. This is already some of the most reasonably priced CBD on the market, and of course, we have a deal for you. So with over 2 million satisfied customers and a 100% money-back guarantee, CB Distillery is the source to trust. So if you're struggling with sleep, stress, or other health concerns and haven't found relief, make the change like millions are to CBD from CB Distillery. For a limited time, you could save 25% off your entire purchase. So visit CB Distillery and use promo code DD. That's ours. Promo code DD. That's cbdistillery.com. Promo code DD. That is cbdistillery.com. All righty. Beautiful. All right. Where's Russell at? There we go. Come back in. Are you getting your stuff together for the next piece? Just got to unmute your microphone there.
Yes. Yes, I am.
All right. I will take some Rumble rants and super chats in the meantime. All righty here. Let's see. Russell's Peasant Mind says, I can't wait to grow potatoes for Lord Musk on Mars. There you go. Good. There's your job. Milton Crow, thanks for the $5. The IRS refuses to reject millions of W-4s filed with reused Social Security numbers to collect illegal withholding. No Democrat or Republican ever mentions this. Interesting. Defund the Pentagon. Goofy. There you go. Brandon Guillory has been a member for 24 months. Feel like we're 2 election cycles away from the Republicans having a claim to being the working class wing of the duopoly. Still won't get my vote. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate that very much. Hillary Hinton says, dirtbags, I'm looking for a rich benefactor to cover my living expenses and pay me a healthy stipend. I offer nothing in return, save for my fabulous DVD collection, which I will allow you to rent from. Well, thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. We will consider that. Throwback Thursday. Remember when Joey Ramone wrote a song about Maria Bartiromo on his final album? It was called Maria Bartiromo, and actually good. I can't. Are people hearing like a weed whacker? Can you hear that? You hear a loud buzzing? Yeah. It's unbelievable. They landscape like 3 days a week here. I've never seen anything like
Really?
this. Yeah, they're like constantly landscaping, sprinkling, fucking power washing. It's like
it's the Goyim. They're sweeping, they're cutting, they're mowing,
obsessed with
they're
grass.
blowing, they're fixing the gutters, they're climbing the stairs, they're fixing the stairs, they're pouring the concrete.
They love the grass. Let me try something and see if this helps. I'm gonna try altering my sound again. What about now? Is that better?
Let me see. One of my buds fell in. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, that degrades the sound quality, but it's a compromise we'll have to make until this guy goes away. Alrighty. Very good. So let's move on. What do we got? Oh yeah, it's Taco Thursday. Taco Thursday, everybody.
Taco Thursday. All right. So Donald Trump got asked about the taco trade, as Wall Street is calling it. The taco trade is you buy every time Trump announces a tariff, and then you sell when he backs down. It means Trump always chickens out. So a reporter had the temerity to ask him about it.
Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out? Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till July 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I went to Saudi Arabia. The king told me. He said, you got the hottest country.
Everyone wants to come here
in
now.
the world right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country.
This is the one thing I will say, because, there are different, mostly autocratic nations like Qatar offering to make multi-trillion-dollar investments into the United States. I think for oligarchs and autocrats, they might like the direction this country is going in. You know, less worker rights, less unions, lower wages. It's not easy to find an industrialized nation with a third world workforce who are inured to third world conditions. So he might very well be right. I mean, it's hot for oligarchs around the world, just like it's hot for our oligarchs, and for the same reasons. There's no other country in its class where you could abuse the population this way.
Yes.
People didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, a little bit, they want me to hold that number, 145% tariff. Even I said, man, that really got up. You know how it got? Because of fentanyl and many other things, and you added it up. I said, where are we now? We're at 145%. I said, whoa, that's high. That's high. They were doing no business whatsoever, and they were having a lot of problems. We were very nice to China. I don't know if they're going to be nice to us, but we were very nice to China. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high.
We say
But I
cold
knew that.
wanton.
But
Cold
they'll never
wanton
say
with China.
What you said, that's a nasty question. Go ahead. To me, that's a nasty question. Wait a minute. Wait. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a guy who's reasoning all this out very well. So he says, you start with a very high number, so giving away the fact that this is all bullshit right there. And then you added all that up, and I said, oh, that's very high. Yeah, no, he's completely in control of all this. But hey, a lot of people have observed that these tariffs are illegal because they're essentially a tax, and only Congress has the right to impose a tax. And a federal court just made the ruling that indeed the tariffs are illegal.
And that
Oh, whoops. Sorry about that.
Wait, can't find a video?
Overnight, a staggering setback for
they were
President Trump's
reversed.
aggressive trade agenda. A panel of judges on
Get it clean.
A federal court has blocked his tariffs on China and other countries, ruling that the president had overstepped his authority under the law. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce starts us off. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, George. And this is a massive blow to the president's trade war. For months, Trump has argued that the world is ripping America off, defiant in his executive authority to impose these staggering tariffs. But now a federal panel says the president is overstepping his authority and that his tariffs are illegal. Overnight, a staggering setback for President Trump's aggressive trade agenda. A panel of judges on the U.S. Court of International Trade blocking most of Trump's sweeping tariffs on China and other trading partners, determining that they are contrary to law. The move effectively bringing Trump's trade war to a screeching halt. In April, the president declared a national emergency to impose his so-called reciprocal tariffs on goods from every country that trades with the U.S. without seeking approval from Congress.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
As markets roiled, Trump defiant.
I know what the hell I'm doing.
But overnight, the federal panel ruling that the law does not authorize the president to use emergency powers to issue tariffs, and that his executive orders exceed any authority granted to the president. The judges appointed by Presidents Reagan, Obama, and Trump also blocking tariffs Trump imposed on China, Mexico, and Canada to combat fentanyl trafficking, because they do not deal with the threats described in the president's order. The Trump administration overnight quick to appeal, the White House rebuking the court, saying it is not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency, adding the administration is committed to using every lever of executive power to address this crisis and restore American greatness. For weeks, the president's on-again, off-again tariffs have caused whiplash on Wall Street, sparking major sell-offs when he issues new threats and rallies when he pulls them back. In the Oval Office yesterday, Trump lashing out when a reporter asked about a new term for his turnarounds.
Mr. President, Wall Street
So just a little more about this. So the court strikes down most of Trump's tariffs, ruling them illegal. The Trump administration has justified the tariffs by citing the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, or IEEPA, which gives the president the power to regulate imports during certain emergency situations. But the court on Wednesday rejected the government's interpretation of the law and said it would be unconstitutional for any law passed by Congress to give the president blanket authority to set tariffs. Now, that's important because this is a core argument they're trying to make. They're trying to argue that Congress gave him the power to do this. The court's ruling is predicated on the idea that Congress does not have the power to delegate its powers. The court does not read IEEPA to confer such unbounded authority and sets aside the challenged tariffs imposed thereunder, the judges wrote Wednesday. The court said Mr. Trump's global 10% tariffs aren't authorized because they're designed to deal with trade imbalances between the U.S. and the rest of the world, which the judges said should fall under non-emergency legislation. And the China, Canada, and Mexico tariffs aren't legal because they, quote, do not deal with the threats set forth in those orders, the court also found. The tariffs have drawn lawsuits from businesses, Democratic states, and other parties. Wednesday's ruling was linked to 2 lawsuits, one from a group of businesses that say they have been harmed by the tariffs, and one from several states. Some of the lawsuits against the tariffs have raised legal doctrines long championed by conservative lawyers and judges to restrict the authority of executive branch agencies. Those include the major questions doctrine, which says Congress needs to give clear authorization for federal agencies to decide issues of major economic significance, and the non-delegation doctrine, which holds that Congress can't delegate its legislative power to the executive branch. And remember, when they come at you, oh, these are out of control liberal judges, one was appointed by Reagan and another was appointed by Trump. One was appointed by Obama. So 2 out of 3 were appointed by arch-conservative presidents, including Trump himself. So this is what John Paul Kennedy said about this, kind of reinforcing the narrative of an out-of-control, unconstitutional judiciary.
In that a federal judge has intervened with the other 2 branches' ability to make policy? I'm shocked. That hasn't happened since yesterday. It'll be appealed. I think it's pretty clear that the president has tariff authority. Congress gave it to him. Now, you can debate whether that was a prudent move or not, but I think it's pretty clear that he has tariff authority.
Yeah,
And,
so this again,
I
this
think
was
it'll be reversed on appeal.
Yeah.
Okay, and of course, sack of shit Stephen Miller says, the judicial coup is out of control in response to Benny Fugazi Johnson's quote tweet of it. Now, this is really an amazing claim that the Republicans are making, that courts don't have this authority over the executive branch, given that they have relied on that authority so often in their own lawfare against executive actions of Democrats. Here's one. You got the American flag and you got the Israel flag, so you know where Pamela Geller here is coming from. Judicial tyranny. Majority of Trump's tariffs blocked by federal trade court. So if a Democrat is president, even a vegetable who is non-compos mentis, their anti-American policies are imposed without deterrent or criticism from the Democrat media axis. Their anti-American policies are imposed without deterrent or criticism from the Democrat media axis. When a Republican manages to beat election fraud and win, the courts take sovereignty. The president has no authority. How did we get here? Where was the GOP when the Democrat Party of Treason was installing this shadow government? And why still do we have a party of traitors and backstabbers? And where are they now? I wonder what her opinion is about Epstein killing himself.
Yeah.
So this just absolutely batshit rant has no basis in reality. And it's very Orwellian, the way people just memory hold very recent court decisions against Democrats. You might remember the court voided the Obamacare mandate, but decided not to void Obamacare as a whole. Remember, there were a few years there on your taxes. You had to file like what your status, healthcare status was. You don't have to do that anymore because the court voided the mandate to have insurance. Supreme Court will allow evictions to resume. You remember this? During COVID, the Biden administration tried to do a nationwide moratorium on evictions, and the court ruled it could not regulate evictions in that way. Or, hey, anybody with student loans, I'm sure, is well aware that Republican AGs and governors were perfectly willing to use the courts in this way to restrain the executive branch. U.S. Appeals Court blocks Biden-era student debt relief plan. This is very recent. This is in February. What remained of this plan? What little of this plan actually got through? Forget about the $20,000. The courts knocked that down right away. So it's pretty amazing that you could get so many people to just memory hold that. I mean, it's very clear what the political motives are of people like Kennedy claiming this is outrageous and we've never had courts do this, when Republicans avail themselves of the courts in this way constantly. But you, average citizen, how did you forget that this just happened? The student loan battle, this just happened. Like, the Republicans weaponize the courts against Biden's policies all the time. It's checks and balances. It's how it's supposed to work. There's nothing extraordinary about it. There's nothing particular to Republicans about it. As you could see, the courts ruled against Democrats repeatedly in these cases. The mooch comes out of retirement to drop a little tweet. Why we have checks and balances. Yes, even a stopped clock. So Trump's response to this, I mean, we can infer it because it came out right after this ruling. Trump truths out this meme of himself. He's on a mission from God and nothing can stop what is coming. So listen, man, if you have the ability to get a second passport, or if you already have one, you know, this might be a good time to start making plans. That's all I'm going to say in response to that. Now, for anyone who's saying, well, the system is working as intended and the courts are going to put a stop to this, Goldman Sachs put out a note. You can, that's paywalled for their subscribers. But Zero Hedge did an article about it that you can look up. That's pretty good. Goldman Sachs on trade court block of Trump tariffs. This ruling represents a setback for the administration's tariff plans and increases uncertainty, but might not change the final outcome for most major U.S. trading partners. Basically, they laid out a bunch of different paths by which the executive could actually impose tariffs. The reason they probably took this route is because all the others have limitations and particular steps you have to go through. And if you look at these guys, they just want to flood the zone, move fast and break things. So they did it this way, even though it was very obvious that the legal basis for declaring an economic emergency that, according to them, began in 1935, which is by definition not an emergency, was never going to hold up to court scrutiny. But Goldman Sachs laid out a bunch of other things they could do. Apparently, if they moved to tariffing items like steel rather than nations, that's easier to do. There are also provisions by which they could do 150-day tariffs, but which they would then have to get renewed. There were also means of imposing tariffs after an investigation by the U.S. trade representatives. So there are quite a few ways around it. One is included here. Trade Act of 1974, Section 301. The president can impose tariffs or other trade measures to address unfair trade practices by foreign governments, such as intellectual property violations or discriminatory policies after investigation by the U.S. trade representative. So look, Goldman Sachs, give the devil their due. I assume Goldman Sachs, evil vampire squid around the planet that it is, knows of what they speak. And if they're saying, yeah, there are like 6 or 7 ways for him to impose tariffs that don't involve this act, I take them at their word. So, and knowing this administration, they're not one to let shit go. The people who photoshopped MS-13 onto Knuckles and then had the president go out and claim it wasn't Photoshop, they won't let it go. Like, if they can't do it this way and they can do it another way, they will. So this may be the end of such sweeping, arbitrary, wake up this morning to 50% tariffs and tomorrow he backs off. It might be the end of that, but it's very unlikely to be the end of tariffs.
Well, there's an opportunity here for them, which is if they look at their poll numbers, Trump's poll numbers actually have improved since backing off of the tariff war. And so, maybe this is an opportunity for them to say, hey, you know what? Let's view this maybe as a blessing in disguise, right? But that would be if they weren't hell-bent on doing what they want to do, which, of course, they are. They are. But if you look, his numbers have actually rebounded since he has abandoned certain parts of what he wanted to do. DOGE, tariffs, right? And so we'll see if they take the hint. I wouldn't hold out too much hope.
If Trump manages to run for that third term, he should run under the slogan, "If only all of America had but one neck."
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, indeed. Ladenifer Jadaniston, thanks for the $5. We don't need foreign students here. We can charge Americans twice more. I don't see the problem. There you go. Richard Namulala, survived Kids Day at the ballpark. Great meeting you, Russ. Jimmy D was fantastic last night. Cheers, fellas. All right, Richard was at the show in Buffalo last night.
Oh, yeah, man. My wingman.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna, when we do the karaoke thing, I filmed some of him. He was pretty good. He can actually sing, that cat.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
He did some You Can Call Me Al.
Oh, beautiful. That's a good karaoke song.
Yeah.
Speaking of songs, we're at 683 on the like meter. Beautiful. Smash that like button, everybody. Smash that subscribe button over here on YouTube. Smash that follow button over on Rumble, please, and thank you very, very much. The Amazing Blumpkin says, after Biden, it's the Hold My Beer administration now. America, true idiocracy. Thank you. Yes. Daria, thanks for the $2. Where does Russell go when he leaves? I need to know. What do you mean? When he leaves where?
When I leave the show?
Oh, when you leave the country?
It's like Schrodinger's Russ.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I don't exist when I'm not on the show.
I think she means when you leave the country, if you end up going to somewhere else.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Like I think like a lot of us, we've given it a lot of thought. I'm saying Spain, man. I'm saying Spain. Like I was hesitating about Europe because of the Digital Services Act. But it seems that while the EU passed it, it's up to the country to enforce it.
Right.
And from what I've seen, Spain is pretty based. Spain with Ireland filed against Israel way back.
Yeah.
Against trading with Israel. So I like being close to the ruins and the museums, the things I appreciate. So I would probably go with Spain, and because I more or less speak Spanish.
There you go. John M. in Minnesota, I noticed that Biden's 23 fiscal budget kicked over $25 million off of Medicaid. Abu Kid, we all need to wake up and realize that the U.S. isn't what always just was, a British colony created entirely to exploit and extract our wealth, like India, so they can continue to enjoy their posh lifestyles. Thank you for that. It's Vito P. Send the Chinese kids back. I miss my wall-based dial phone. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito. Appreciate that.
These kids are like MSG in America's bloodstream.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Yes. All right.
Don't get rid of them. We're all going to have a stroke.
That's right. That's right. All right, folks. We're just going to stay paused here for just a moment because here on Do Dissidents, we're all about building a vibrant community of engaged listeners who connect with authentic voices and independent thought. And speaking of authentic voices, we want to spotlight John Koa, a compelling solo artist who's not just a longtime listener of this show, but a true part of the community. John's 34-song collection, A to Z, is getting its finishing touches. This is a massive undertaking, and a release strategy for this many songs is currently being devised, so its arrival is imminent. The project is a unique blend of originals and powerful covers that John has honed over the years on stage in Los Angeles, Tokyo, and other cities, performing live, usually with 2 or 3 other musicians. He plays and mixes the album himself, creating a distinct retro-modern sound that's entirely his own. You'll hear compelling interpretations of tracks like Jackson Brown's Dr. My Eyes, Ben Harper's Excuse Me, Mister, and the Rolling Stones' Give Me Shelter. Songs whose lyrics, it turns out, feel remarkably timely. While A to Z prepares for its launch, make sure you've caught John Coa's 2 latest studio singles on all your favorite streaming platforms. So you can go to dodissidents.com/Coa, and that provides you with his website, which is a link to all of his socials. You can also find him by searching John Coa on Spotify, Apple, X, and YouTube. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/@JohnCoa. So please do go and check that out and support our dissident artists who partner with the show. All righty. Okay, let's move on here. All right, I modified this slightly at the last minute because something came across that was kind of fun. All right, so folks, Piers Morgan is honing in on our action, the anti-Israel online podcaster. He's having a little fun with this, which, you know, it's good to see. Year and a half too late, but good to see. So here he is, breaking. He tweets this out. Breaking, Piers Morgan asked Israeli ambassador Tzipi Hatavelli, who is the Israeli ambassador to the UK, not the US, asked her 17 times why she knows how many Hamas terrorists have been killed, but not the number of children. So she stonewalled him on the number of children that Israel has killed. Of course, she blames Hamas for every child's death. But here he is asking her 17 times to give him a number. Let's take a look. They thought this was fun enough to make a good montage.
1,000 terrorists in phase 1 of the war. Since the war is back, I don't have the numbers. But let me tell you one thing. We never target civilians. So this question is irrelevant.
How many children have you killed?
Piers, Israel is not killing children. Israel is not killing children. Hamas is using them as human shields.
Israel is killing children every single day. I'm asking you this question for a purpose. I'm curious why you say you know exactly how many Hamas terrorists have been killed, but you have no idea how many children have been killed. Why is it you know one number, but not the other?
I'll give you the answer.
Why don't you know the statistics?
Are
you saying no children have been killed in Gaza?
I didn't say that.
Are you saying that?
I didn't say that.
What are you saying?
I said.
Well, what are you saying?
Hamas
how
needs
many
to
have
be
been
blamed.
killed?
Hamas needs to be
How
blamed
many
for
have been
any.
killed? I'm
you
asking
know,
you why you know how many terrorists you've killed, but you don't know how many children you've killed in the process.
I have
why
an
don't
answer
you know
because
that?
we targeted those terrorists and we never targeted any civilians.
But you know many thousands of civilians have been killed. You understand
Piers,
that, do you?
do you understand that you don't care about my children
don't
and
keep
other
asking
Israeli
me
children
questions.
by letting 7th of October happen again and again?
I do. Again, I simply ask you one more time. Why is it you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you don't know how many children you've killed? Why is that?
As I said again, because in the end of the day, when you're accusing someone in
killing, you don't count one, but you count the other?
You accuse someone in doing something deliberately, while Israel is not doing it deliberately.
Numbers?
Can I accuse the UK of killing German children during the war?
17 times. Wow. Couldn't really get anywhere. Oh, boy. Drove him crazy. Piers Morgan told the Israeli ambassador to the UK that Israel is killing children, and she called it a blood libel. Okay, so here we get to see more how this conversation went. Now, as a theater director by trade, I noticed a very key moment here, which everybody seems to have picked up on, which is Piers's reaction when she accuses him of blood libel. That comes about a minute in, but let's watch the lead up.
Have 2 doctors in Gaza who have 10 children and 9 of them are killed in a bombardment by your forces. That doesn't make people feel, oh, this is all going great. It makes people think that you're waging a systematic destruction, not just of property and of land, but also of children. And that's what's happening. The percentage of children that you're killing compared to the percentage of you're killing of Hamas terrorists, what is it? Do you know? Do you know how many children you've killed? Hang on. Answer me that one question. Do you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed and how many children you've killed? Do you know there's 2 numbers?
I know the numbers that came from the IDF. I know the numbers that came from a very, very established
Give me the two numbers.
Wait a second. We killed 30,000. We killed 30,000 terrorists in phase 1 of the war.
That's a complete lie. A complete lie.
Since the war is back, I don't have the numbers. But let me tell you one thing. We never target civilians. So this question is irrelevant.
How many children have you killed?
Piers, Israel is not killing children. Israel is not killing children. Hamas is using them as human
Israel is killing
shields.
children every single day.
Pierce, this is a blood label you're putting on Israel. You know it's not true.
No, it's not actually. And what you're trying to do is be very weaselly with your words.
No, I'm not.
The truth is, you are killing a lot of children. You would argue you're doing.
Why it's caused?
Hang on, let me finish.
See that right there when he says, "Actually, no, it's not actually." No, it's not. That's as defiant as we've ever seen him. And I think the reason this is not working anymore, and it's frustrating for most of us in this space who have seen this for the last year and a half, but the human shields argument, it does not apply to withholding of food. That's the thing.
Right.
Now, it never really was honest anyway. That point was never made honestly in the first place. But that point got a lot of mileage for a very long time. The human shields argument, which is basically the urban warfare argument.
Well, for decades.
It's a densely populated area, so you have to fire through the civilians because they're being used as human shields, which is, of course, a perverse justification for killing civilians. I mean, that's not justifiable at all, but they got a surprising amount of mileage out of that. Withholding of food aid, that argument does not apply at all. That doesn't work at all. And that ended up really being the straw that broke the camel's back. That ended up really being the turning point. When they proved that they were willing to withhold food from the entire population for over 2 months, that neutralized their whole human shields argument to the point where now, when she calls it a blood libel, look at his response.
One thing. We never target civilians. So this question is irrelevant.
How many children have you killed?
Pierce, Israel is not killing children. Israel is not killing children. Hamas is using them as human shields.
Israel is killing children every single day.
Pierce, this is a blood label you're putting on Israel. You know it's not true.
No, it's not actually. And what you're trying to do is be very weaselly with your words.
No, I'm not.
The truth is, you are killing a lot of children. You would argue you're doing.
You know why it's caused?
Hang on, let me finish.
Hamas is using them as human shields, and you know that.
Let me finish my question to you. You are killing a lot of children on a daily basis. That is indisputable. My interesting question.
Okay, indisputable because you can't argue human shields when you're starving them.
Right. Yeah.
So Glenn Greenwald tweets out that Piers Morgan, of all people, who justified Israel's destruction of Gaza for months, is treating an Israeli official this way shows the massive sea change in global opinion. And nobody is petrified now when Israel screams blood libel. It lost its sting from overuse. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly.
And that's happening to all of the narratives that Zionism has relied on for its entire history.
Exactly. You cannot just scream blood libel anymore. If it doesn't work on Piers Morgan.
The human shield shit's not working anymore.
No.
All their stuff is not working. And the core thing that they rely on, that it is anti-Semitic to be anti-Israel, is toast. The only people who seem to still believe that are the Trump administration because they get paid a lot to believe it.
Exactly. Marco Rubio. That's about it.
Yeah.
So here he closes out of fairness. He's going to give her an opportunity to answer his question, and he ends up kind of shaming her in the end.
Because we know each other, I'm going to give you one last chance just to tell me even a ballpark figure of how many children have died in Gaza.
Pierce, I think I'm very famous for saying the truth. And the truth is that I don't know. If I would have known the number, I wouldn't have hid it from you.
That's right. You're known around the world for saying the truth. That's right.
Children have died in Gaza.
Pierce, I think I'm very famous for saying the truth. And the truth is that I don't know. If I would have known the number, I wouldn't have hid it from you. So why do you keep on asking the same question again and again?
Because I don't understand how you can know how many terrorists you've killed, but you don't know how many civilians you've killed. Why do you know one but not the other?
As I said again, I think that it's totally irrelevant to the main question the humanitarian international law is asking. The international humanitarian law is never about civilians getting killed. It's only about who are you targeting. And if you're doing a legitimate warfare.
Are you happy that people are going to watch you as an ambassador to your country say that it's irrelevant how many children have been killed?
Yep.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that clip.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I mean, he just ends up shaming her. And like I said, when you've lost Piers Morgan, you've lost a lot. You know, in a sense, we kind of predicted that, you know, as the genocide entered it's accelerated.
At the rate they're going, in another 6 years, Bono's going to say apartheid.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, well, this is what I mean. Look, they really exposed themselves with the withholding of aid. I mean, that ended up doing it. The last time we saw a sea change like this was after the white Europeans got killed, the World Central Kitchen workers, and I don't say that to minimize the loss. Obviously, those
Joe
people.
Scarborough all of a sudden decided.
Right, all of a sudden, MSNBC was really upset. They were calling for sanctions, and like I said, that's not to minimize their loss. They're much bigger people than me. Anybody who goes over there, obviously, but
yes,
the outrage was because some Europeans who were intervening got killed. This is the first time where you see, and people like Miss Rachel are a big part of this, when you see children being starved in this way, that's just, it hits upon too primal an instinct, and they're just too evil to contain this anymore. And so I really think this has passed the point of no return. If the embassy shooting didn't turn public opinion back, then I don't think anything will.
Didn't even make a dent. From what I saw, nothing. You know what this is? This is like that clip that went viral at the soccer match, where the guy was just trying to talk about soccer, and the Israeli interjected himself. Don't say anything against Israel. He's like, no, I'm just talking about soccer. The guy was so disgusting. He was such a disgusting pig that finally this guy who just didn't want to talk about it, free,
yeah, exactly,
free. That's what they've done to the world.
Yep.
That's what they've done to the world. We saw this in the Jerusalem Day segment we did the other day. The world is just starting to wake up to the fact that this is not a country. This is an insane asylum. Yep. These people are sick, psychopathic people who have been raised to be psychopaths. They have been raised to believe that they are surrounded by Nazis. Yep. And they behave like people who believe that. Right? What's not permissible to do to Nazis?
Yep. So this is an op-ed that was just printed in the Washington Post. We're not going to read it, but I think the title is significant and the outlet is significant. A genocide is happening in Gaza. We should say so. Now, this was not printed by the WAPO editorial board. I don't think Bezos would go that far. But the fact that they're willing to print this in their paper, the genocide word, that is an indication that the tide has really turned. It has really turned. And look, we had a feeling it would because, look, if you're going to follow through on a campaign of ethnic cleansing and genocide, eventually you're going to expose yourself. You have to in order to complete the genocide, right? And it's just beyond shameful that it took this long and took this much blood to get to this point. But we're here. We're here, and just like those who were against the Iraq War were vindicated in due time, the Vietnam War were vindicated in due time, Afghanistan, Ukraine. This is a similar dynamic. Obviously, the circumstances are even worse, even more sadistic, even more evil than those recent examples that I rattled off, because this is clearly an intentional campaign of elimination. But I think we're there. I think the withholding of aid was just too much for the world to take. There's no excusing that. There's no explaining.
No, it was
that
the
away.
tipping point. I mean, this is what we discussed the other day. Hey, it can be very difficult always being ahead of the curve and having to wait for society to catch up to you 2 or 3 years later. But you have to see that it is because you raised your voice that society gets there eventually. If it were not for people like you raising their voice with the Israeli Hasbara machine, they could have kept this invisible forever.
Yes. And you have to be especially tactful and especially smart, which in general, the pro-Palestine movement has been, right? Because the problem with this too is, the Iraq war protests were ignored. Right. But the pro-Palestine protests are really persecuted. I mean, they really throw the book at you. They actually try to come after you and hurt you. And part of that is to create a chilling effect. But part of that is to forcibly silence the pro-Palestine movement, which means that you have to be very smart and very strategic and very tactful in how you go about raising your voice, meaning you can't give them the ammunition they need to turn public opinion against you. You cannot be violent. You cannot be destructive. And in general, with very, very rare exception, these protests have been extremely peaceful and extremely civil. And of course, very importantly, nonviolent. And when you stick to it in that way, you do see results. And please don't take my word for that. Please watch the No Other Land documentary. The whole movie is great, but there's the part that really applies here is when the co-director of the film says, we're just going to come out here and protest every week, no matter what happens. No matter what happens, we're going to come out here and we're going to protest. We're not going to attack people. We're going to protest peacefully because we know that over time, this will have an effect. If we do not give up, we will win. And that's what we see happening now. And it can seem fruitless in the moment, but it's not. It's not. And this was an extremely trying time for all of us. But we are winning this argument, and we will win this argument.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Where are we at here? There we go. Sorry. Nick Wesley, one Chinese transfer student in my college class of honor students and advanced placements look like amateurs. He was an average student in China. Well, yeah. No, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Baby Ethernet. Thanks for the $2. Every day is an episode of The Apprentice for Trump. Thank you for that. Building 7, thanks for the $4.99. Are you two ever going to apologize for live streaming Trump rallies telling us how great he is and how we should vote for him? We did not do that. I don't know what you're talking about.
I want you to go back and watch our coverage of Braga, where I went on a whole monologue about how the vibe was definitely fascist, nationalist, and anyone who didn't like me saying that was free not to watch the channel. And then come back and tell me about how we pumped him up.
I mean, as a matter of fact, we did not tell anybody to vote for him. And I don't know if we live streamed any of his rallies. I don't. You might have the wrong channel.
No, actually, we didn't live stream it. I made a cut of it. I mean, I assume you're talking about the Braga rally cut.
We may have live streamed.
I
live streamed
like
the convention speech. Maybe we live streamed the convention, but I think we live streamed the DNC too.
Well, that was like, yeah. Oh, yeah. We did live stream the convention. That's where we were like holding our heads in agony.
Yeah.
Through that
worst speech of our lives. Worst speech I've ever seen. Yes.
No, it's very funny how people like remember things the way they want to remember them for their narrative.
Yeah, I mean, if you can pull receipts, fine, but I don't believe we've ever done that.
No.
We were pretty emphatic that you shouldn't vote for Trump. In fact, to the chagrin of much of the audience. Yes. Krauthammer once wrote that if Israel falls, Judaism would disappear due to the tendency of Jews in the diaspora to intermarry extensively. First they wanted to kill us, now they wanted to marry us. Yeah, he was quite something, that guy. Ding Dong Doodoo Daddy, contributing because I used to landscape when I lived in Albany and I need to atone. A good one, thank you. Ding Dong Doodoo Daddy, appreciate that very much. Crystal Water says, feeling cute, may fuck around then run against Fetterman. We want America first, not getting what I voted for, but we'll get a revolution sooner, God willing. Left-right populists unite. Are you going to run for Senate against Fetterman? That would be interesting. Thank you, Crystal. Well, good luck in that endeavor, should you choose to take it on. Okay, let's keep moving, right? We got the COA done, CBD's done. Okay, good. All right, so we're good. We're looking good. We're doing all right here.
We're rocking.
We're rocking. Go ahead. Pete Hegseth.
All right. Our favorite drunk Secretary of Defense is one of my favorite memes about him. I don't always include reporters in unsecure war plan group chats, but when I do, it's because I'm incompetent and drunk. It's really quite a question now. The betting markets are taking on how much Trump has invested his pride in not firing Pete Hegseth versus how apparent it is that this job is far too big for the man that he put in this position. As horrific as the job is, he's not up to the job on its own terms or any terms, clearly. And here's a very good example of that. We're going to revisit this because it never gets old. Pete Hegseth's kids have that dad's drunk again trauma face. Even though it's funny that he shaved one sideburn but not the other, imagine having to live with this emotional train wreck. Now, this was after a second Signal leak had come out where he included his wife on a Signal group chat about war plans, and he was asked about it at the Easter egg roll on the White House lawn.
My dad and my kids, because, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters.
Look at the sideburn.
This group, no, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with axes to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much. Have spoken to the president, and we are going to continue fighting on the same page all the way.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
Wow. Does anybody have a beer?
Yeah.
So there is new news in staff Firegate. Pentagon in chaos. You might remember this from last month after Hegseth sheds 4 staffers in one day. Now, those staffers put out a joint statement. They were Dan Caldwell, Colin Carroll, and Darren Selnick. The 4th one didn't actually get fired from the Pentagon. He got transferred to another job. We are incredibly disappointed by the manner in which our service at the Department of Defense ended. Unnamed Pentagon officials have slandered our character with baseless attacks on our way out the door. All 3 of us served our country honorably in uniform. For 2 of us, this included deployments to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And based on our collective service, we understand the importance of information security and worked every day to protect it. At this time, we still have not been told what exactly we were investigated for, if there is still an active investigation, or if there was even a real investigation of leaks to begin with. While this experience has been unconscionable, we remain supportive of the Trump-Vance administration's mission to make the Pentagon great again and achieve peace through strength. We hope in the future to support those efforts in different capacities. So Dan Caldwell, one of the accused, actually went on Tucker to talk about the real reasons why he might have been fired.
Of a regime change war in Iran, and that was kind of your...
There we go.
It's very obvious to me, having far fewer details than you have, that you're one of the people who is perceived to be standing in the way of a regime change war in Iran, and that was kind of your crime. That seems obvious to me.
I think it's complicated. There's other layers to this, but based on what has been happening since then, I think that is a factor. Is that I think, and it is being weaponized against me, is I think that they want to also go after, and I think that I can't say this with certainty, but just speculating, that had somebody in the White House not said, okay, we need to put a stop to this, there probably been more people treated the same way that Colin, Darren Selnick, and myself were treated.
Okay, so old whiskey breath went on Fox while all this was blowing up to defend his decision.
Mr. Secretary, did you find this out, or did they come to you? Because I know you know these guys. Like these are the guys you picked, especially Caldwell, and they worked for you for your previous job before you got over to Fox. And they said that they have not been asked to their phones. They weren't asked about communications. They didn't go through. They didn't take a polygraph. So why would they be let go and not be investigated?
Well, Brian, when there were a series of serious leaks at the Pentagon, which there were, Panama Canal plans, Elon Musk's visit, you name it, any number of things, and there's 4, 5, 6, 7 things. We said enough is enough. we're gonna launch a leak investigation, which we did, which was then handed over to OSI, which is the special investigators here at DOD.
Right.
Through that investigation, information was surfaced, which created a responsibility to take action. That's how it works when you you actually investigate leaks, Brian. So it's easy to say, oh, we asked everybody and everybody said they're good. Or you can take it seriously and say, we don't think leaks are okay at this department. So we're going to investigate. And when we investigate, we'll take it anywhere it leads. And unfortunately, Brian, to your point, and again, if one or two of these guys is exonerated after an investigation, great. That's what investigations are for. But we took it seriously. It led to some unfortunate places, people I have known for quite some time, but it's not my job to protect them. It's my job to protect national security, the President of the United States, and let the investigation go where it is. So when that evidence is gathered sufficiently, and this has all happened very quickly, it will be handed over to DOJ, and those people will be prosecuted if necessary.
It feels like Hegseth and Jordan Peterson should go to a men's retreat and scream and cry and get whatever nervous energy they have in their system out, because they always seem like they're about to crack.
Right.
They always seem like they're right on the verge of some horrible secret pouring out of them.
Right.
White House stunned as Hegseth inquiry brings up illegal wiretap claims. Now, if you look at this story and you look at what Caldwell said, that he thought it was the White House that put a stop to this chaos of paranoia, it's seeming paranoia in Hegseth's Defense Department. If you look at this story, it seems like there's probably some truth to that. And what Hegseth's claiming about the evidence they had, as Caldwell and his fellow co-firees speculated, it looks like the whole thing's just total bullshit, which was pretty apparent from the beginning. The White House has lost confidence in a Pentagon leak investigation that Pete Hegseth used to justify firing 3 top aides last month after advisors were told that the aides had supposedly been outed by an illegal warrantless NSA wiretap. The extraordinary explanation alarmed the advisors, who also raised it with people close to J.D. Vance, because such a wiretap would almost certainly be unconstitutional and an even bigger scandal than a number of leaks. Okay, so you understand? This is so illegal, it was too illegal for these fucking people. These people considered it too far over the line for them. But the advisors found the claim to be untrue and complained that they were being fed dubious information by Hegseth's personal lawyer, Tim Parlatore, who had been tasked with overseeing the investigation. A ship of crackpots. The episode, as recounted by 4 people familiar with the matter, marked the most extraordinary twist in the investigation, examining the leak of an allegedly top secret document that outlined options for the U.S. military to reclaim the Panama Canal to a reporter. The advisors were stunned again when Parlatore denied having told anyone about an illegal NSA wiretap himself and maintained that any information he had was passed on to him by others at the Pentagon. Wow. Don't you feel safe? Don't you feel safe knowing these people are at the top of the world's most powerful military? The leak was first attributed internally to Hegseth's senior advisor, Dan Caldwell, who was escorted out of the Pentagon and fired last month alongside 2 other aides, Hegseth's former Deputy Chief of Staff, Darren Selnick, and the Deputy Defense Secretary's Chief of Staff, Colin Carroll. But the illegal wiretap claim and Caldwell's denials fueled a breakdown in trust between the Pentagon and the White House, where the Trump advisors tracking the investigation have privately suggested they no longer have any idea about who or what to believe. Are you telling me that you put an erratic drunk in charge of the military and it's leading to results where you don't know what the hell's happening over at the Pentagon? I can't believe it worked out that way. Holy crap. It's almost like you should have more qualifications than Trump liked watching you on Fox to lead the Pentagon. Who knew? In particular, one Trump advisor recently told Hegseth that he did not think Caldwell or any of the fired aides had leaked anything, and that he suspected the investigation had been used to get rid of aides involved in the infighting with his first chief of staff, Joe Casper. And that's what it looked like when we covered it the first time. It sounded like Mean Girls having a bitch fight. The fraught situation is sure to increase pressure on Hegseth ahead of a Senate hearing next month, and more broadly for his office, which has been roiled by the leak investigation that has now continued for nearly a month with no new evidence or referral to the FBI. Remember how confident he was on that Fox interview? I mean, fake confident.
Yeah.
You know, he reads as a weak man trying to assert confidence. The fallout has left Hegseth with no chief or deputy chief of staff, as he relies on 6 senior advisors to run his front office, which is involved in setting the direction of the Defense Department that has a budget of nearly $1 trillion and oversees more than 2 million troops. Well, that doesn't sound unsafe at all to have the Pentagon being run this way. And while Hegseth's former junior military aide, Ricky Buria, has in effect assumed the job of the chief of staff, the White House has blocked Hegseth from giving him the job permanently on account of his limited experience and role in internal office drama. You know, well, keep going, guys. Keep going. So you feel this guy is not qualified to be the permanent chief of staff because he lacks experience and he's a source of drama. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, you might arrive at the person that you put in charge of the whole department. At first, Parletor rebuffed the attempts to obtain the underlying evidence, noting it was inappropriate for the executive branch to insert itself into an ongoing criminal investigation that he said could still yield charges. But towards the end of April, according to what the Trump advisors shared inside the White House, Parletor suggested that there had been a warrantless wiretap on Caldwell's phone. Parletor has denied making such a claim when confronted by associates and has generally maintained during the investigation that he has only passed along information briefed to him by others. Reached by phone on Monday, Parletor referred questions to the Pentagon press office. I mean, this whole story is just such a damning expose of what a bunch of bumbling crackpots you have in this administration. So basically, you had this lawyer who is Hegseth's personal lawyer, by the way, that he gave an official role as a legal advisor at the Pentagon. You know, he got some pressure. Well, you know, these guys went on Tucker, and, you know, Trump likes Tucker, and he watched it, and he asked what the hell's going on. Oh, well, we wiretapped him. What do you mean we wiretapped him? Well, we called the guys at the NSA. You know, that's really illegal. I mean, I heard they wiretapped him. This is what's going on over there. These are the people running the country. It is a confederacy of criminals. And you could say that it's always a confederacy of criminals. But this is a particularly bumbling, lawless bunch. And for the Trump administration to be aghast at the illegality of something in their administration, they don't have a lot of regard for crossing legal lines and telling the establishment to go screw itself. Although I suspect it's also because, honestly, and it mentions this elsewhere in the article, that Trump did see that Tucker interview. And I think that's probably why they care, because Trump watched that and was like, what the hell is Hegseth doing? The guy, why'd he fight it? He's making us look bad, right? That's why they're that concerned about it. I'm sure if they really thought that these guys were the leakers, they wouldn't worry too much about how they got there.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that the criteria for a cabinet position this time around, much more so than last time, is loyalty to Trump, right? So you figure,
Right.
okay,
And
Hegseth
and a Fox gig.
and a Fox gig, but I mean, those are kind of one and the same, right? Now you might say, okay, well, given all this, they have to fire Hegseth, right? I mean, like how much longer can they keep him around? I mean, really,
I
he's
think they
such a
got to
drag.
fire him. Yeah.
Here's the problem, though, and this is probably why they're a little reluctant to, and this is going to be, I think, a running problem for them as these 4 years drag on is that if your number one criteria is loyalty, then your first string, you kind of really got to invest a lot in your first string, because whoever you bring in as a substitute knows they were just the backup, right? So they are, by definition, not as loyal to you as the first guy who you chose. Now, notice the one guy who they bounced was the neocon infiltrator, Mike Waltz, right? And even him, they didn't really bounce. They made him ambassador to the UN because they moved Stefanik around. But yeah, like a loyalist like Hegseth, I think he has a lot more rope than, say, you know, Jeff Sessions did when he was the first AG, Rex Tillerson did, because he's there for his loyalty, right? They didn't just pick him off a page. They picked him because they trust him to be loyal to Trump. And so I think that gets them a lot more rope, because, yeah, you would think by now they got to see him as a liability. How could they not? I mean, it seems, according to this reporting, that they do. That doesn't even seem to be speculation.
I think it's also difficult to find somebody who's qualified to take the job, more qualified than Hegseth, who's not also a bottom-feeding crackpot, as is what populates Trump's entire administration. Because you have to be shameless to be willing to work in an administration like this. You have to be like Gabbard,
like
where
Tulsi,
you're willing. Yeah, you have to be like Tulsi, where you're willing to just go back on everything you ever claimed to believe in at the boss's whim. You have to be that kind of person. There are very few people who are literally qualified, really qualified, to run the Pentagon. Whatever we think of the Pentagon, it's a complicated job. It's horrible. It's, you know, managing this evil military machine. It requires a certain skill set. How many people really have that skill set who are going to be willing to give Trump a handy every time he gets in front of a camera?
Exactly. That is the sticky question, for sure. No pun intended. Yes. All right. What the hell just happened here? Oh, sorry. I screwed that up. There we go. Now that's correct. All right. So, hey, folks, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, and you want to join our bonus Film Club stream tonight, that's right. We're doing Film Club Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That is the subject of tonight's Film Club live stream, 8 p.m. Eastern for members only. So sign up at dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. Either one of those will do the trick. Dealer's choice. Locals is a free speech platform with Rumble. So if you're watching on Rumble now, you can click that bright red join button underneath the screen and join our Locals. That takes you to that page. For just $5 a month, you get bonus live streams for the Film Club. You also get access to our once-a-month patron post game, which we debuted on Tuesday. It was a great success. People had a lot of fun with that. We had a great call-in line. We had great viewer numbers. So glad to see that went really well. So once a month, we will have extra segments plus a call-in Q&A right after the main show airs on the public platforms. You also get call-in access to our member Q&As once a week. So once a week, you get to call in and chat with us live on Rumble after the show every Sunday night. You also get full live stream ad-free replays of every show the day after they air. So if you miss a show and you don't want to watch it back with ad interruptions on the public forums, you get an email with the full show uninterrupted by ads emailed to you the day after it airs. All that for just $5 a month or $50 annually, which gets you 2 months free if you sign up for the full year. So dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. Members will be getting the email invite for tonight's stream shortly following the conclusion of this program. You guys are the backbone of the show. We thank you very much, of course, for your continued support. All righty. We got here, Otacon says you can't run. The Empire's tentacles spread far and wide. Maybe if you go to Russia like Snowden and Tara Reid. Yeah, Russia is, that's why they're there.
And Jackson Hinkle, so we hear.
Yeah, so we hear. I am the Owl. Spent my entire life savings on Trump crypto coins, gun silencers, and Shiloh Hendricks donations. It's depressing now that I have no money for food and rent, but at least everyone knows my politics. Thank you. I know my Owl. Appreciate that. The Peopled Infinite says it's not a country, it's an insane asylum. Russell, put that on a t-shirt. There you go. Y'all the best. P.S. Any word on the next post-duopoly show with you and the boys? Yeah, we're going to do it next week sometime.
Are we doing it Tuesday?
I think next Tuesday, something like that. It was supposed to be this week, but I got the Jimmy gig, so we had to postpone it. It was supposed to be this week, but it will be next week. So looking forward to that. Thank you, Peopled Infinite. Jay Duncan M3 Golf, thanks for the $2. Why wouldn't Israeli ambassador just give Piers a number? Well, because they don't want to admit to having done any of it. They want to say it's all Hamas's fault, right? Human shields, right? So they don't want to say a number because they don't want to admit any guilt at all. Brandon Guillory says living through idiocracy is every bit the dystopia that Trey and Matt encapsulated. Much love and keep fighting the good fight. Yeah, the chat did my job for you there, Brandon. Thanks for the donation. Correction, Mike Judge. Thanks, chat. Yes, that was Mike Judge, the mind behind the Idiocracy movie from Beavis and Butthead fame. I watched the whole Zippy interview. The comments were she needed to go on the Gaza diet. Ooh, that's a dark joke right there. But yeah, I didn't watch the whole interview. It was he had her on for a very long time. I'm surprised he had that much patience for her.
It also tells you something about how delusional Israel is that they thought that would go well.
Yeah, that they thought that would be a great idea. Exactly. All right, folks, we have one more segment on the day. This is a very emotionally intense segment here, so be forewarned. But in October of last year, Dr. Feroze Sidhwa, a trauma surgeon, printed the following guest essay in the New York Times, 65 doctors, nurses, and paramedics, what we saw in Gaza. So this was a pretty thorough report combined with X-ray images of bullets in children's brains and skulls that was co-signed by, like the title says here, 65 doctors and nurses. He got testimonials from all of these people testifying to the horrors that they witnessed during their time in Gaza. And yesterday, he testified at the United Nations. The whole speech is about 9 minutes. We're going to play about 3 minutes or 3 or 4 minutes of it right now. But this is truly harrowing and very, very emotionally disturbing stuff here.
Gaza, I operated in hospitals without sterility, electricity, or anesthetics. Surgeries took place on crowded and filthy floors. Children died, not because their injuries were unsurvivable, but because we lacked blood, antibiotics, and the most basic supplies that are readily available in any large hospital anywhere else in the world. I did not see or treat a single combatant during my 5 weeks in Gaza. My patients were 6-year-olds with shrapnels in their heart and bullets in their brains, and pregnant women whose pelvises had been obliterated and their fetuses cut in two while still in the womb. Mothers sheltering in the hospital cooked bread on hot plates in the emergency department during mass casualty events, as we dealt with the rain of fire and death falling around us everywhere. Mr. President, the foundations of life in Gaza, family, health, and community, have been shattered. The medical system has not failed. It has been systematically dismantled through a sustained military campaign that has willfully violated international humanitarian law. Civilians are now dying not just from the constant airstrikes, but from acute malnutrition, sepsis, exposure, and despair. Between my 2 visits to Gaza, I witnessed a sharp decline in patients' health, driven not just by injury, but by worsening hunger and malnutrition that left their bodies weaker, their wounds slower to heal, and their survival far less certain. And let's not forget, this is a man-made catastrophe. It is entirely preventable. Participating in it or not, allowing it to happen is a choice. This is a deliberate denial of conditions necessary for life: food, shelter, water, and medicine. Preventing genocide means refusing to normalize these atrocities. It means refusing to dehumanize the Palestinians, to refuse to see them as calories counted or numbers of trucks moved. We see now that this way of thinking has brought about a human dignity crisis, with an entire people on the edge of survival. On March 18th, the ceasefire was violated by Israel. That day, I witnessed the most extreme mass casualty event of my career at Nasser Medical Complex. 221 trauma patients arrived in one morning. 90 were dead on arrival. Nearly half were severely injured children. No health system on earth could cope with this, least of all one that is besieged and starved of supplies. Hospitals are meant to be sanctuaries. Healthcare workers and first responders are supposed to be protected. Children are supposed to be protected. In Gaza, these protections are simply gone. Every day, the distinction between combatant and civilian is erased. Most of my patients were preteen children, their bodies shattered by explosives and torn by flying metal. Many died. Those who lived often awoke to find their entire families gone. Last year, I published in the New York Times a survey of 65 American healthcare workers who had served in Gaza. 83% of them reported seeing children shot in the head or the chest. I personally treated 13 such cases in my 2 weeks at European Hospital. According to the War Child Alliance, nearly half of Gaza's children are suicidal. They ask, why didn't I die with my sister, my mother, my father?
I have to play that again.
War Child Alliance, nearly half of Gaza's children are suicidal. They ask, why didn't I die with my sister, my mother, my father? Not out of extremism, but out of unbearable grief. I wonder if any member of this council has ever met a 5-year-old child who no longer wants to live, let alone imagined a society in which so many young children feel this way. And what astonishes me is not that some children in Gaza have lost the will to live, but that any still cling to hope.
So that is 4 minutes of about a 9-minute speech, and it's brutal to take. I encourage you to share the entire thing. Drop site has it. I should have retweeted it and pinned it before the show. I forgot to. I will. So if you go to our X later on in the day, it'll be pinned there, and you could share that because, as some of you were saying in the chat, yeah, that's not going to make the mainstream news. No way. No way. I hope some of it does. Feroze has made the rounds on media, both legacy media and alternative media. We were going to interview him. He just got called into surgery the day of the interview, and we were never able to put it back together because he's obviously extremely busy. We have his contact. I would love to get him on sometime when he can make it. But he has been making the rounds, incredibly poised, incredibly calm, and the scene at the Security Council meeting was, of course, extremely tense and somber. Here is the representative from the state of Palestine, recognized, of course, by the United Nations, Riyad Mansour, breaking down while in the same room.
Unbearable. How could anyone tolerate? Since Israel broke the ceasefire in March, over 1,300 Palestinian children have been killed, and around 4,000 have been injured. These are children. Children. And still, a war against barbarism. Children. Dozens of children are dying of starvation. The images of mothers embracing their motionless bodies, caressing their hair, talking to them, apologizing to them. It's unbearable. How could anyone tolerate this horror? Excuse me, Mr. President. I have grandchildren. I know what they mean to their families. And to see the situation of the Palestinians without us having hearts to do something is beyond the ability of any normal human being to tolerate. Flames and hunger are devouring Palestinian children.
Well, he's right. It is beyond the ability of normal people to tolerate, which is what explains, obviously, the shift in opinion that has been clearly evident this past week or so. But here is Feroze Sidhwa on the BBC responding to that very clip. And as that clip cuts out, you could see the BBC anchor holding back tears, which once again is, I think, an indication of why we have passed a tipping point, because as the ambassador there says, no normal person can stomach this. It is not normal to look at scenes like that, to hear testimony like that and not be rattled. It's not normal to not be rattled when you hear something like that. So let's take a look at this.
Well, also present at that UN Security Council meeting giving testimony was Dr. Feroze Sidhwa. He's a trauma surgeon who has volunteered in Gaza, and he joins me now. Thanks for being with us here on BBC News.
You notice, look when it cuts out. See, she's obviously choked up there.
Well, also present at that UN Security Council meeting giving testimony was Dr. Feroze Sidhwa. He's a trauma surgeon who has volunteered in Gaza, and he joins me now. Thanks for being with us here on BBC News.
Okay, so now he talks a little bit about the aid situation, which we'll get into a little bit. I covered this more thoroughly on Jimmy's yesterday, and I'll link to that when we clip this, but we will get into it a bit now.
As I said, you were at the Security Council hearing this morning. You've been in Gaza. When we look at those scenes of desperate people overcoming what little aid is starting to come into Gaza, can you describe to us just what the situation is like there now?
Yeah, the situation is horrendous. It's certainly the worst it's ever been. There is widespread and very severe hunger in Gaza. Most of the hospitals are non-functional. Most of the other types of healthcare checkpoints or service points are non-functional. It's horrific. It's hard to describe in a few words, honestly.
And in terms of the health situation that is there, you said there most of the hospitals aren't functioning. So what is the situation for children specifically?
It's devastating. Children are half of Gaza's population. The median age is 18. And when I was there, about half of my patients were small children. I'm talking about pre-teenage children now. The situation is terrible. Children do not function well, and they certainly can't grow and develop normally when they're being starved. One small piece of bread to eat per day is not enough for a child to live, let alone thrive. And then when children get injured, they have very little access to health care, certainly not to meaningful reconstructive health care. Like, I'm a trauma surgeon. I can stop people from bleeding to death with minimal equipment, but reconstructing their limbs, fixing their spines, dealing with traumatic brain injuries, these are all things that are just not available in the Gaza Strip in any meaningful sense anymore. And then the psychiatric devastation that children are facing is absolutely unprecedented, I suspect, in all of world history. The War Child Alliance, and I mentioned this during the Security Council meeting, the War Child Alliance has put out a report showing that almost half of Gaza's children are suicidal. That's completely I've never seen anything like that in any of the conflict zones I've ever worked in. I think it was 96% of Gaza's children expect to die in this war.
96% expect to die.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't they?
Yeah. So the UN condemns the U.S. aid system in Gaza after Israel opens fire on crowds. So there's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is a sort of privately funded U.S. and Israeli-approved aid delivery entity that has commandeered the quote-unquote aid operation in Gaza. And this is the image that went viral a couple of days ago. This is the line for food, looking very much like a concentration camp in Rafah. Now, they set up these aid distribution centers in the south because they want to lure the population to the south and lock them in the south and then build housing for them in the south. In other words, a concentration camp, because they want to clear out and claim the north. So they're saying if you want food, you have to walk 10, 12 miles south to get food if you're in the north, and then get online. Most of these people did not end up getting any food, but there were shots fired and injuries reported at these scenes. A U.S. and Israeli-backed process for distributing aid in the Gaza Strip faced growing criticism Wednesday after scores of Palestinians were wounded across 2 days of deliveries. Fearful, desperate crowds thronged locations where food was being handed out, underscoring the scale of the hunger crisis in the besieged and shattered enclave. UN officials said that as many as 50 people appeared to have been shot and injured near the private aid distribution site in the southern city of Rafah's Tel al-Sultan neighborhood Sunday, and that crowds had overrun Tuesday, sorry about that, and that crowds had overrun a World Food Program distribution site near Deir al-Balah in central Gaza on Wednesday, sacking it for individual bags of flour before themselves being attacked by armed looters. Initial reports indicate 2 people died and several were injured in the tragic accident, World Food Program said in a statement. A health official at the nearby Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, Ayad Amawi, said later that 3 people had been killed. Humanitarian needs have spiraled out of control after 80 days of complete blockade of all food assistance and other aid into Gaza, WFP said. Israel has barred nearly all food and medical supplies from entering Gaza since March 2nd. We're now almost in June, leaving parts of the population on the brink of starvation. The newly launched aid program is run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a controversial private organization that began distributing food in Gaza this week. The mechanism is Israeli-approved, secured by private contractors backed by the United States, and bypasses the UN system for providing relief. Like I said, we did a more thorough piece on this on the Jimmy Dore show yesterday, which you can watch. That should be coming out today. It's already up on Rumble, be up on YouTube later in the afternoon. But of course, why would the United States and Israel want to control the aid distribution? Why? Because they want to distribute aid on their terms. Number one, they want the aid to be distributed in the South, since that's where they want all the people. They don't want the UN coming and giving it out in the North. That does not accomplish their goal. Norm Finkelstein, in the conversation he had with Benny Johnson on the Piers Morgan show, predicted this. He said what they're going to do, they're going to set up aid shops. There's not going to be nearly enough aid, which means there's going to be a rush to get to aid. The IDF is going to claim there was a riot. The IDF is going to fire upon the crowd. That is exactly what happened. Sure. That is exactly what happened. He saw it coming. It wasn't difficult for him to see that coming. But that testimony is just devastating. It's devastating. And, everybody sees it now. Everybody sees it now. And so share that. It's only 9 minutes. The full speech is only 9 minutes. So share that testimony far and wide, and hopefully someday we can make it work, but we'll bring him on.
Yeah, I think even knowing everything that we've known, just the level of just demonic disregard for human life, just the absolute lack of compassion and just normal human empathy is just beyond anything I think even people with very low expectations expected. You read about the Nazi invasions and war crimes. A lot of the Nazi soldiers killed themselves because they couldn't handle, like, they would go and have to, like, mass execute a village. Right. A lot of them would commit suicide because they just couldn't bear.
A lot of American veterans in Vietnam and Iraq, that's a huge problem, with a lot of Western warriors. Yeah.
Right. The Israelis are so hopped up on this belief that they are avenging the Holocaust and that in some way the people they're doing this to are the proxy for the people who did that to them, even though they had absolutely nothing to do with it. I think they're a population that's particularly vulnerable to that because it's so woven into their religious mythology, the idea of people constantly coming to wipe you out and surviving against all odds. I mean, that's like core to the Jewish identity, that vision of themselves. And you have in modern times, in actual documented genocidal attempt against them. It justifies anything, man. It justifies anything. Like, and that's why, the Nazis, you have a kind of secular religion in Nazism, but most of those guys were just soldiers.
Right.
They're just soldiers who happen to, be caught up in it, who didn't have that ideological fervor. The difference with the IDF is they're all products of a society that is predicated on beliefs with genocidal implications from the beginning. There is no real countervailing idea of what Israel is. Its basic premise is a colonizing supremacist premise based on a very particular interpretation of history mixed with a Bible that most of them ironically would claim not to believe in, being secular, but they believe that this land was given to them nonetheless. You put all that together, it's a lack of empathy that you don't even really see with all of the Nazis. Some of them, but not all of them. It's just, you don't see almost any. There have been people who refuse to serve in the IDF. Like there are some Israeli conscientious objectors. We showed with the Jerusalem Day coverage, you get some people who go out there to protect the Palestinians from attacks by Israelis on Jerusalem Day. There are some, but it seems that the IDF just don't have anybody who have a problem with this, or almost none, to go and do things like this. It's just amazing that you could get this many people with such a lack of just the basic human impulse to see children in that condition and not just say, I can't
do it. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, this is part of how you get a society where you see poll numbers like the poll out of Penn State that Max Blumenthal tweeted out, because, and a lot of that is the compulsory enrollment in the IDF, because the thing is, when you give someone a gun and armor and you put them in, what you construct as a survival situation, well, now they have a very, very first person attitude towards this issue, right? Where they see Palestinians as the enemy, because why do they have this weapon to defend themselves if they're not? So of course you come out of that and you probably adopt that way of thinking very quickly after enrolling, and certainly after you're done. And the very, very small minority of Israelis who are not on board with this are those purple vest people, are the conscientious objectors. But every incentive and every sort of structural imperative of the society pulls people in the exact opposite direction of that, right? It enforces, Norm Finkelstein says it's a satanic state, and that's really the way they behave.
They seem to have stopped now, because I haven't gotten this on my Facebook in a while. How sick a society that you would flood Facebook with short videos of teenaged Israeli IDF women dancing provocatively as a way of getting people on your side. I mean, that clearly was a government effort. That was not a private effort. It was everywhere. I kept getting it. I would keep cursing them out, saying horrible things. That would just get me more of them. Now, somebody seems to have said, maybe portraying our daughters as genocidal whores is not the best way to win over the public. So I haven't seen that in a while. But what a deranged society to think that's a good idea.
Right. Of course. All right. Eric Rousseau says the same that should permeate throughout America sadly will never come. We have short memories and are easily distracted. I cannot bear this horror. I don't blame you, my friend. Thank you. John M. in Minnesota. I remember Dr. Gabor Mate speaking on the consistent trauma of children in Gaza. This was in 2019. Yep. Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Javier says, I always tell my girlfriend I'm a famous truth teller when she accuses me of cheating. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Respected samurai, we must never forget that RFK Jr. said on the Jimmy Dore show, the IDF is the most moral army. Oh, yeah, he says that around. Said, what did he say on the... he says that everywhere he goes. He says that
anti-Semitism is a public health crisis.
Yeah, it's a public health crisis. That's right. That's right. That affected his performance, even as HHS director. What do you know? All right, folks, that is our show. We appreciate you all being here very much. Members, if you'd like to sign up, go to dudissidents.locals.com, and we will see you all tonight for the film club. That will be an 8 p.m. start time, everybody. You will get the email shortly, but that is all for now. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to the YouTubers. Thank you to the Rumblers. Thank you to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. We will see our patrons tonight. I'll see you all tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern on the Jimmy Dore Show. And then we are back Sunday night at 7 p.m. with what should be a pretty big announcement. We'll tease that out now. It might be a tease of a tease, but Sunday into Monday should be some exciting news. So we will let that hang in the air because that's all we are at liberty to say for the time being. Patrons will see you tonight. Everybody else, I'll see you tomorrow.
Just 2 words. Show. Seed oils.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll see you all tomorrow on Jimmy's Sunday, 7 p.m. back here. Until then, thanks very much for spending the afternoon with us. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.